Hello, everybody. It is Thursday night. It is time for Revolutionary Change. I'm Jen Perelman.
I'm Peter Hager, and I'm on the right side of the aisle this time.
That's all right. I'm used to being on the left.
Jen, you look like you're in some type of a dormitory of some kind.
I'm not in a dorm. I'm in a little Airbnb, little hacienda. My husband and I are moving my little to college tomorrow. So this is it. This is my empty nest. My empty nest.
What you've always been longing for probably quite some time, and now it's official.
I would just say that the past few teenage years have been particularly grating. I don't really care for teenagers, and I didn't even really like teenagers when I was a teenager, so they haven't grown on me since. So it's been interesting.
Well, you have told me time and again that as much as it has been difficult, you're still better off having teenage boys than teenage girls.
Oh, I am reminded of that on a regular basis. And in fact, the other day I was sitting in the car with Greene. Did I tell you about the roach?
No.
Oh, so we're sitting in the car at a traffic light and he goes, "Mom, look." And I look down and on the dashboard, on the AC vent was this giant roach. And I said, okay, and I'm being as calm as possible because I'm sitting at a traffic light. And I said, okay, Graham, I'm going to need you to just handle it. All right. I'm going to need you to just handle it. He takes this napkin, grabs the thing with his hand, opens his window, shakes it off, and brings the napkin back in so as to not litter. That's my boy. And let me tell you, I was like, oh, I am so happy I have boys. But the thing is, if it were Reese, he would have been shrieking like a baby girl. Like Reese would have been screaming.
No, my friend Mike is just like that. He's a tough guy. He's a Guido. He's from Jersey, but let me tell you something. If it's a spider, if it's a critter of any kind, he's like, get it. He won't do it. I guess that's it's not arachnophobia is if it's a spider, but as far as it being anything else, I just can't stand. For those of you who don't know anything about Florida life, I'll clue you in, especially in South Florida where it's much worse. It still happens here in the Panhandle, but we have these special type of roaches here in this state. And they're also called, I think, palmetto bugs. Is that what they're also called? Is that like another word for them? Can you hear me?
Wait, palmetto bugs?
Yeah.
They're palmetto bugs. But they're flying roaches, okay? They're flying roaches. That's what they are, okay? So imagine people, if you don't know what a palmetto bug is, imagine a really big cockroach and it flies. It's not a selling point, right? Like that doesn't make them better, I assure you.
No, definitely not. The problem with the palmettos, those particular type of roaches here in Florida, they will crawl through your
AC.
Right? And the AC, they'll crawl through the pipes in your shower.
Yeah.
So trust me, if you're not used to Florida living, you will have a heart attack the first time you see one scampering.
They're big.
Sometimes it's a few of them. Oh, they're like that big.
Yeah. It was the entire width of the AC vent. It was so gross. And I was just like, yeah, see, the only time I'm really bummed about not having girls, I swear this has come up repeatedly for me, is I'll be somewhere like when I was with my boys in Philly staying at that Airbnb, and I would have loved somebody to French braid my hair for me or something, And so there are moments that I'm like,
that's life that you can't have. That's what you have friends like Rachel for. Some people will just
I don't know. I just, yeah. So
the place I want to start tonight, I just kind of want to read this off because I saw a clip earlier from Netanyahu. Apparently, he put out another message today. As we know, things are getting pretty dicey out there. But Colin, I want you to pull up that tweet that I sent you from that huge account. I don't know her name. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. They're all the same as far as I'm concerned. But it's very telling just in terms of what they were saying. So we're going to start first with this latest statement from Netanyahu, IDF. Yes, exactly. Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
No question. So Netanyahu had this to say, and apparently it was a statement he issued earlier today.
It's very hard to fight the deception, the lies, the starved children, the pictures of starved children who turn out to have cerebral palsy or other congenital disease.
Cannot listen to this man.
Could you imagine saying that? What would be a good excuse? Let's think of what would be a good one. How about cerebral palsy? Have we tried that? Maybe
you remember that was the image of that woman and her baby or her child and who's starving. And they came back and said, oh, that's like a fake because that child had a pre-existing condition. And it turns out that that child did have a pre-existing condition, but yet that child wasn't starving beforehand, right? Like there's having cerebral palsy, and then there's her having cerebral palsy and starving. See, no one's blaming Israel for him having cerebral palsy, although the fact of her probably having traumatic pregnancy, traumatic birth, and probably not great care actually could have contributed to her having a child with cerebral palsy. That's very possible. Yeah. But yeah, the starvation is the issue, Ben.
They'll grasp at whatever straw they can.
Is that leave them emaciated, and Israel is, of course, accused of starving children, pretty much the way that in the Middle Ages Jews were accused of killing Christian children for their blood. So, you know what?
Oh.
Well, I mean, I guess in a way you kind of are. I mean, you're trying to get Christians all over the world to die for your cause. So
yeah, you know, but he's comparing something that was a legend and a lore with something that they're doing that's a fact, right? So the killing Christian babies for their blood is never, that's a silly thing, right? Like that's one of those things like Jews have horns. That's one of those stupid things. And he's comparing that, like that's the same kind of allegation as alleging that they're starving people right now. They consider what we're saying a blood libel, like they consider those accusations. The level of narcissism at the state level with this is just, if Israel was a person, it would be hands down the largest narcissist to ever be on the planet.
Oh, I agree.
What do you do against the lie that circles the earth 10 times before the truth has a chance to emerge? You have to shorten the war as speedily as possible. And frankly, we also have to do something about the algorithms and the social networks. This is a big challenge. I don't want to dismiss it.
Yeah, you don't, which is why our channel is probably going to be on the chopping block before we know it.
Oh, yeah.
We may not be that big, but we are certainly that annoying.
Yeah. So guys, if you ever, look for us and we're not there, you can find us on Patreon.
And yeah, we're going to have to go live there. And apparently some of you guys who are, look, we've obviously got a lot of Nick Fuentes viewers watching our channel now. Keep watching us over at Rumble. Looks like that'll have to be the next strategy if worst comes to worst. Colin, can you please grab the tweet that I sent you just a little while ago? So I want to read you guys this message because I think that this is the type of message that resonates with people that still support Netanyahu, still support the greater Israel cause, if you will. They really have this idea in their head that they're going to get away with this. And the only way you could possibly get there is if you were under this delusion that everything is okay, that the entire system is not falling apart. It may not have fallen apart yet, but it is going to.
All right, take him down. I can't look at him anymore.
Bye, BB.
Yeah, he's pretty. Don't call him that. That makes it like, that's like an endearing nickname. There is absolutely nothing endearing there. Nothing.
I don't know who this Cheryl person is. I don't really care. She apparently has a very, very wide-reaching audience. But this is what she had to say. I'm just going to read this to you. I've realized something, and I don't really care if it loses me followers or if it upsets people. I feel rage. Every ounce of niceness inside me is gone. I can laugh, and I can post humor on reply with a jovial tone. But even that is a mask for the anger inside me. I feel nothing for the Gazans, any of them. And I feel nothing for any of those who hate us. This isn't a game. This isn't a sport or a movie or some little phase where people have lost their minds and Jews are yet again the scapegoats. What happened since October 7 has changed my world and how I view people and everything around me. The sheer number of people who want to see us dead makes the Nazis of the 1930s and 40s look like a high school choir. There simply is no going back. There is no shaking hands and oops, we didn't mean it. Everything has changed. It will take generations to fix this. And from everything I see, there isn't even the will or care by hundreds of millions of deranged sociopaths to fix anything. The blood libels and lies and propaganda are manufactured at such a pace that there aren't words in any language to even describe how insane and dangerous it is. There is nothing I'm able to say to my girls to take their fears away. Even as children, they sense it, they see it, they hear it. And the problem isn't just the incessant noise and vitriol and hate. It's the even more deafening silence by the vast majority of everyone else. It is the number of governments, the very people given full control and power to stop it, yet willingly choose to support the hatred and calls for our extermination.
Can I stop you for a second?
They're spiraling.
I mean, this entire I don't know how long this goes on, but this entire letter is so completely 100% accurate. She just has it backwards. Because if you didn't know what she was talking about, like if I thought, like I would be sitting here thinking she's talking about what's happening to the Palestinians.
Sure.
So that's how amazingly distorted these people are, that they actually think it's reverse because they think they're the victims. I don't know who this bitch is, but I hope your children are scared every night. They should be. They have you as a mother. I'd be terrified.
I don't care anymore if a minority or majority of people voted for these governments in the same way the Gazans. Remember, they're calling them Gazans because, remember, to Israelis, Palestinians don't exist.
Nope.
That's the reason they're using that word, just so you guys know if you didn't know that already. For an elected Hamas, so too did all those Western governments get voted for and elected. People knew what was coming. Keir Starmer, for example, was elected during this war. Genocide. Everyone knew exactly what would happen. They knew exactly what was coming, and yet the silence and apathy by millions of people who didn't bother to vote led to one of the most dickless and corrupt communists being elected. Boy, they really are spiraling. Being elected, and that government is now there for several more years. All the moaning and whining about it by people are irrelevant. Everyone knew and yet allowed it. The same throughout Europe. Americans voted for change. They saw what was coming and overwhelmingly voted against the hate.
All right. So David Hunter is saying, Jen, every convert is a zealot. You were a Zionist in your young days. Could you reach out to her and offer her hand? She's not stupid. She's a victim and a perpetrator of propaganda. You are correct, sir. However, the difference is that when I was that age and I was a Zionist, I didn't have the access to the internet and all the information at my fingertips. This is a grown-ass woman who is privileged and entitled and has access to information and education. And as a result, I know that it isn't that she doesn't know the information, it's she doesn't want to know the information. And that is what puts those people in the willfully ignorant category. I do work with the literally ignorant. I will work with ignorant people, not willfully ignorant. She falls in with willfully ignorant. That can't be helped.
But even that has ignited a new wave of sick freaks who sit behind a camera and mic and push the most insane BS and lies that undo almost everything achieved by voting in Trump. An entire movement has risen to take him down and bring carnage and hate and division to America. And yet, aside from a few voices opposing it, many support it and or are silent. Didn't one of your dear leaders give Trump $100 million for the presidential run? Why would they need to give him that money if he was right all along? Unless you have to buy people's influence. Just a thought. It's been 22 months since the war was waged by the Islamists. And it's every day since then it's been even more shocking, more horrific, and more shameful. So many people see the hate and actively fan the flames. And those people have tens of millions of supporters. New cults of Nazis and fake Christ is King Christians, Islamists, and communists spring up every day. You forgot to say socialists.
No. So yeah, point being, this is not somebody that can be reasoned with. This is somebody who actually seems like some sort of paid tool to me.
Oh, I'm sure they're paid. But what I also think is true and cannot be denied is that they know that they're running out of real estate and they don't know what to do. You don't see protests and hate marches and podcasts dedicated to wiping out Russia or China or anyone else. Again, They don't get it. You won't even see protests calling for jihad. Now it's jihadists to be wiped out as they continue to rape and murder and mass. No, that's what Israel does. Entire communities of Christians and Hindus and Druze and
okay, you know who's killing the Druze, you stupid bitch? That would be Israel. Oh my God.
All the hate and wish for death, it's aimed solely at Israel and the Jewish people. Remember, Israel and Judaism are one and the same in their mind, simply because we exist. And it's the maudlin.
No, see, the thing is, what's her name? Who's this?
Cheryl.
Okay. See, Cheryl, they don't hate us because or rather, I should say, they don't hate you because you're Jewish. They hate you because you're a piece of shit who supports genocide. See, that's the thing. Yeah. I would bet that you don't even practice Judaism. You're just a talking piece. And the thing is, you could tell all these are just like she's literally checking off like ADL and APAC talking points.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she probably got this directly from the Netanyahu.
That's what I'm saying. Like she's being given something for this because, yeah.
And it's taken every bit of empathy and care and niceness out of me. I don't care our enemies are now wiped out. They're evil in a way even scripture couldn't describe. Yeah, Palestinian babies. It's beyond
democracy. Privileged elitist bitch. I feel like every day you're creating, like you're adding to this list of hoes that I feel like I need to go handle. It's so frustrating. Like if we were back in, you know, the teenage years, I feel like I might have to take care of these people.
Colin, please scroll. It's beyond demonic, and I feel nothing. Nothing but rage and fire. Our world has changed, and it will never be able to go back. The world lied and about never again, and I won't forget. Well, here's
and neither will we. This is what's so great is that she thinks that she's on the right side of it. That's what's hilarious. That's how ridiculous these people are. They are so delusional. It's like 99% of the world agree this, and they think we're all wrong. That's the level of entitlement and narcissism that these people just have. It's really, it's unparalleled. I think they're worse than Nazis. I do. I think like Zios are worse than Nazis to me.
I mean, you can understand where the whole Nazi growth spurt came from because of just how devastated Germany was post World War I and the Treaty of Versailles. You could see how it happened. Zionism is a completely different thing. It's all based on irrational thinking. As you often said, and was always a telltale sign when you ran for Congress is, are you a person of reason? If you are a person of reason, then I can connect with you. If you're not, then I can't. It's not going to work.
Right. That's what I was just saying before. Not everybody wants information. And when somebody doesn't want information, you giving them that information anyway is just like talking to a wall.
Well, it makes
if
them
somebody
hate
isn't receiving it, there's no point in giving it.
There's also something to be said for people that get that information and then they end up hating you even more because they, under no circumstances, like you said, regarding this Cheryl person, ever wants to question anything about what she believes. Now, if you scroll down even further, Colin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was done. I'm sorry.
You'll see the type of comments. Of course, there's the Shoshana.
I love you from Shoshana.
Yeah, Shoshana is a very common Israeli
name. But what's
name.
so interesting is that it's just, this is what tells you how delusional these people are, is the numbers, right? Like they don't bother to look at the numbers as to how many dead people on the Israeli side and how many dead people, even if they think this is a war, right? Like how many, they don't bother to look. And the reality is they truly believe that each Israeli is worth about 50,000 Palestinians. So that's about their exchange rate. So they don't like, that's what's so insane. These people are so delusional. It's really
guys,
crazy.
155 of you are watching, but only 75 of you have hit that like button. If you are here, don't be square. We really appreciate each and every one of you being here, but you got to pay the token. It's not much. It's just a like. So
well,
smash
subscribe
that.
Is good. Subscribe is good.
Subscribing helps too. Sharing helps too. And any and all contributions are obviously appreciated. But if you scroll down a little further, you'll see that there's some consistency here with these, all of these people telling him, oh, you're absolutely right. You're incredible, Cheryl, all these things. There is this mass delusion. And then I want to point out this one account right here, this account Vivid. So my understanding is that this account, which has hundreds of thousands of followers, pretty big account for pro-Israel, and constantly posts like that shitbag Ayal Yacobi does all the time. This guy apparently is not even an Israeli. He's an Indian who's getting paid to do this. Okay. So he's, just another fake.
When you're on the wrong team, they have to buy people to be on their team. They've been having to pay for support since the very first protests that they held after the big March for Palestine in DC. They have to actually pay people to bring them to protest. So they don't have actual organic support, but very little.
I happen to know for a fact that that account is paid, and a lot of them are paid. Now, how else could you possibly do this if you're not paid? You can't get to this point. Yes. Is it possible that this Cheryl person is real and that she really is this delusional? Yes. But
yes, but that doesn't mean the other thing isn't true too. She could be real delusional and she's still in with whoever it is that's giving her platform space.
Part of the reason I think that they are spiraling out of control, and look, there are many reasons for this, and we got a lot of stuff to cover Israel-wise tonight, but the one that I do want to cover, which I think is important, is we have been saying for the longest time that drip by drip, little by little, time after time, there is going to be a massive shift that is going to continue. And the populist right is where it was always going to come from. It was never going to come from the populist left. Why? Because the populist left is, they don't fight. They don't fight the way that they need to fight.
Well, wait a minute. No. You mean in the political sphere?
Yes, in the political sphere.
There is no populist left there. That's the problem. We see a little bit of a populist right. There is absolutely no populist left in our Congress. There isn't. Correct. So I don't know who you're talking about.
Well, the person who is on the populist right, who is fighting the good fight right now, obviously is Marjorie Taylor Greene. And if she's going to use her platform to get on with Megyn Kelly, and you're going to hear the conversation, you're going to hear how it develops, but Megyn Kelly is talking about not being fully on board with Israel anymore, and the vitriol that she has received just by questioning whether their methods are accurate is a sight to behold, because it shows you that their position's untenable. Obviously, we're going to get to Alexandrovich as we go on in the evening, but this is one that I thought was very important. So here's what Marjorie had to say. And keep in mind the language that they use, because they're not all the way on board. They choose their language very carefully. You'll notice that.
They also take a lot of influencers. They invite tons of influencers.
Many of whom have invited me. Like, we're all going together, and will you come? Like, they seem to be coming at me from a number of ways, which only really kind of raises my hackles. Like, I'm not going. I'm going to stay right here. I can cover this conflict from here, and I don't wish to be wooed by any side. I actually don't wish to be persuaded.
Have you been invited by any other foreign country?
No.
Okay, that's the part, right? So we have tons of lobbyists foreign countries lobbyists that come to Washington, D.C. Pretty much every country has some sort of representative. They have an ambassador they send to Washington. It's naturally in their interest. We can understand that. They also are required to register under FARA. It's a law. They have to register as a foreign agent, a foreign lobbyist. That is required. It's extremely important. Here's the difference with AIPAC. AIPAC is not registered under FARA, under this law that requires anyone coming to lobby a member of Congress or a senator or department of the government and the federal government on behalf of another country. So AIPAC argues, but we're Americans. Yes, they are Americans, but they are coming to Congress and to the federal government asking on behalf of the country of Israel. And I fully agree with you, Megyn. We are not against Israel.
But we are.
Right. And again, I always feel like I have to make the caveat then. I am not a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Her stance on this issue in particular, while we would like to see the end result, we have very different motives. She's coming at this from what I believe is potentially an actually anti-Semitic and nationalistic perspective of America first. I do think she is somewhat of a white supremacist. I'm not a fan. So her reasons for being annoyed about the whole thing and frustrated about Israel, that if that helps us, great. But I do not consider her anyone that's on my team. right? Like she's the broken clock, right? Twice a day on this issue.
They're all for their right to defend themselves, just as we are for any Jewish person on campus. Just as I think gosh, we could talk about young white males in high school that are constantly getting beat up.
Yeah.
Guess what? They should have a right to defend themselves too, and people should stand up for them as well. We think anybody that is a victim should be able to defend themselves. However, Israel is the only country I know of that has some sort of incredible influence and control over nearly every single one of my colleagues.
That's the problem. That's the
what
problem. You know, and when people say, why don't you talk about other countries? Well, other countries are all registered under FARA, and other countries don't seem to have this influence over every single person, but maybe 3 in our Congress.
Well, what separates Marjorie, obviously, is that she just doesn't care. You know, she really walks to the beat of her own drum. And whatever her motives are, which I do think in part is her seeing the tea leaves and recognizing the direction that the country's going in post-Trump, even during Trump's tenure, because a lot of things are kind of up in the air right now as far as the direction that the country's going to go in. But she is a savvy politico. She knows how to play where, you know, sort of where the winds are blowing and roll with it.
Yeah, but see, this is the problem. That's the problem with her, is the white Christian supremacy thing. It's a problem. The white nationalism, it's a problem. It's not a little thing, right? It's not like she and I disagree on the concept of a flat tax, right? Like that's a big thing that we disagree on.
Well, she hasn't been using that type of language, but that doesn't mean that it is
she's playing this side right now. She's playing this side because what you're saying is she's very smart politically. She absolutely can read the tea leaves. She felt safe enough to take this stand, meaning she knew she'd be safe, and she will be, because she is on the side, which she does have the support of most people. She is on the correct side on this. But her motives and my motives are very, very different.
Very likely.
And it is, I don't know how to explain it.
I mean, I believe it just given the amount of reach out I've had in this position. And I don't vote on anything,
Yeah.
And if I had taken money, I could see them really thinking that they had a right to control my speech or, my positions, which is why I never have. Of course, I mean, in what context would I? I don't take advertising from, random people. Like I always say, I have Genucel, whose cosmetics are really nice.
We love good cosmetics.
Yeah, but I can't be bought by a special interest group. But I can see it because, look, no one wants to feel like their position has been bought and paid for. But these politicians, they have. And so I can see why AIPAC would get mad if these politicians then turned on them and didn't support. It's like, what did my 3,800 times 3 get me if you're not going to vote for my issues?
Exactly.
She brings up a very good point about the influence of money in these sort of local races. And if you have somebody that happens to support Israel and is going to donate, let's say, in this case, over $10,000 to your campaign because you, your spouse, and child are going to give you that money, times that by, 20, 30 times, and you have yourself a real political campaign. And in many cases, especially once you get elected, it's not a guarantee that you get reelected, but it's pretty close. So if you're just going to play along, that's essentially what they're saying. And if you don't play along, they'll just find somebody else who's willing to do it. And Jen, as well as anybody, the people in Broward County that would become a corporate whore of the highest order to take Wasserman Schultz's seat if the opportunity was ever there.
Let's address Ron. Let's answer this question. White Christian nationalism is a problem. It's white Zionists that are a major problem, not my people. Okay, first of all, it's all the problem. Okay. To me, those are basically the same thing. Zionism is white supremacy. White nationalism is white supremacy. It's just one is here and one is in West Asia. That's you're splitting hairs. It's all the same thing. And I don't like any of it because it's all about some form of supremacy. See, that's the problem. I don't care who it is that thinks they're supreme. It bothers me. There's no supremacy.
The problem that I think a lot of guys feel, and I understand this, there is a feeling of anti-white sentiment, and I totally sympathize with that. But you can't take one leap from. I've seen people in the comment section that are just saying, like, I don't want to feel like I don't matter because I'm white. And I'm with you 1,000%. But then you can't have ones in the sort of, let's say, the Fuentes coalition that will then come out and say, and I only wanted to be white. It's like, you cannot complain if you're not going to speak out against that type of incendiary language either. Now, do I think Marjorie feels that way? Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. I don't know. What I do know is that she is using her platform in a very bold way to try to get a policy shift in this country regarding Israel. That's more than I can say for most.
And that's right. If she leads a mission and gets some sort of traction to require AIPAC to register under FARA, which I don't think will ever happen. Like, I don't think it'll ever happen. I think if it even comes close, they'll just reform under a whole different thing like they did when they created AIPAC when John Kennedy wanted them to register. And so they regrouped, rebranded, and came back again. So I don't know how effective it'll be.
But this is why we all know that this country's changing, because while that worked yesteryear, it's not working now. There is a blood rage that is fueling this country right now. And that's why butter.
I love that, Travers. Travers, that reminds me of something my Uncle Marty would have said. He was one of my
She's
favorites.
She's not ugly. She may not be everybody's cup of tea, but
Who? Marjorie. I find her to be particularly homely. Like, I don't find her to be a pretty girl. Like, that's just not, I don't find her attractive. Like, that's not something I would say about her. I think she kind of works with what she's got, but no, I wouldn't. I mean, I would even go so far as to say, and I don't like Megyn Kelly at all, but Megyn Kelly is attractive. I think the hair extensions are a little weird, but okay. And yeah, no, I mean, I would not say Marjorie Taylor Greene is attractive. Like, I wouldn't call her attractive. But
I wouldn't say that she's ugly. I would not.
And I'm not saying that is a mean thing. I swear, like, I'm not saying that is a mean girl at all.
Well, you know the saying about politics. It's Hollywood for ugly people.
For ugly people. Yes.
That's what the saying has always been. Is what it is.
Because AIPAC are Americans, therefore they can legally donate to members of Congress and senators. So let's talk about how that works. AIPAC takes every single that they can, freshman member of Congress, their first year in Congress, they take them on a very special trip to Israel in August. August is our recess. It's our month-long district work period. That's
Dems and Republicans, or just Republicans?
They take both of them. Oh. Yes. And they invite pretty much everyone, to my knowledge. So they take them on this trip to Israel. I guess they go on tours all around. I didn't go, so I don't know what they do there. But they take them on tours, like the pictures we've seen recently of the speaker and other members of Congress at the Wailing Wall.
They've all gone.
They've all gone.
See them all.
And they wear the kippah. Mm-hmm. And even though they're Christians, they're not Jewish, but yet they're adorning Jewish attire. And they're at these Jewish religious sites. Mm-hmm. Then they also meet with different members of the Israeli government. Now, we got to recognize the Israeli government is secular. This is not the biblical Israel. It is the secular government of Israel. And so they meet with their members of all throughout their government, and the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, meets with them. And so they've done that trip already this month. The new freshmen and members of our leadership all went and they did that trip. Here's what else they do. AIPAC takes influencers. They take really big people like you. They want you to come over there. They want to pull you in because they want to pull you on their side.
Yeah. I mean, it's a brainwashing tour. I've been on one. I was on the Alexandrovich High School in Israel propaganda tour. This is just the congressional freshman propaganda tour. The Zio State has tailored a propaganda tour for any potential group. They are such Hasbara. Their entire country is built on propaganda and fake information. So that's the basis of their existence. They're a 24/7 propaganda machine. That's all they do. Like, they are a marketing firm. So that's what, and they're constantly reaching different groups. They're constantly fanning flames everywhere. And yeah, it's an operation.
I mean, I think the key talking point of this entire conversation is coming directly from Megyn Kelly, where she was basically saying, I just gave a slight critique to Israel and the Zionists lost their mind.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not watching you anymore. I'm not listening to you anymore. Yeah, well, if anybody wants to remain isolated in a bubble, it is definitely the Zionists. And as you can imagine, it's only going to get infinitely worse. And I mean infinitely worse as we go forward, because they're running out of real estate. They're running out of people that they can bribe or convince that this is the way to go. I think it's just inevitable that it's going to fall apart. I mean, it's
just a matter of how much the collateral damage. And it's, I mean, Gaza is just completely annihilated. The West Bank is about to be completely annihilated. They're about to sever the transportation route between Ramallah and, I think it's, somebody tell me where it is. It's the other big, it's the further south in the West Bank, the second major, maybe Hebron, maybe. They're about to make it so that that's impassable now, which was like the last artery of any sort of transportation. The Palestinian people do not have freedom of transportation. They do not have freedom of movement. Hence apartheid. So now it's just going to be like the final nail in the coffin there. And we're just saying, sure, have the West Bank. Have the West Bank. Go with that.
But don't they I mean, like you said, death by 1,000 paper cuts or a nosedive. In this case, it seems like a nosedive. And I do believe that because it's going to accelerate to such a degree that they're not going to be able to continue to get away with this. And I do think that there is this sort of public shunning, if you will, of certain people that is going to accelerate to a boiling point. I bring this up because I mean, everybody, I'm sure at this point, is familiar with Gal Gadot, and there's plenty of, pro-Israel Jewish people that are out there, even Christian people. Patricia Heaton is an actress that comes to mind. She's a devout Catholic, which is what's probably the most shocking aspect of it. She is an insane Zionist, like an absolute insane Zionist, still out there posting about all that bullshit. And yet, for whatever reason, you have Gal Gadot, who is insistent that the reason that she is essentially becoming blacklisted, if you will, from Hollywood is because she speaks up for Israel.
That is why. But that's true. And she should be, because she's speaking up for a genocidal regime. So good. That's a good point. I think she should be blacklisted for supporting genocide.
Remember, BDS can surface in many different ways. You can BDS Hollywood. If there is an actor or actress that is in support of the Zio state, just don't see their movie.
Well, and I actually, what Travers says, that she's an Israeli propagandist plant. I actually think it's more than that. I actually think she is like really an operative that was put in there, not just for the Zionists, but I actually think it's more the nation state of Israel, not just Zionists in general. I do. I think she's an operative. I think she's a plant. She sure as hell can't act. And she was attractive. And so they could put her in that position, so because that is, I can objectively say she is an attractive person.
Yeah. The only problem is, Brown Bunny, is that Scarlett Johansson, unfortunately, is a lot more liked. But Scarlett Johansson's a Zio, full blown.
I don't like any of them. I have a 4-foot perimeter now. I prefer 10. But I've come to appreciate that public transportation makes me have to tolerate a 4-foot perimeter.
Well, here's what Gadot had to say. Oh, and apparently her real name is Gal Greenstein.
Yeah.
Of course.
אני חייבת להגיד לך, קודם כל, ממש נהניתי לצלם את הסרט הזה. ממש. נהניתי...
שזה לא היה עם רייצ'ל זליגר.
נהניתי אפילו לעבוד עם רייצ'ל זגלר.
What was she saying about, because Rachel Ziegler stuck up for the Palestinians, correct?
She did. And I would imagine, and listen, I don't want to absolve any and all responsibility away from Rachel Ziegler. She's got a real smart ass mouth on her. And, you know, she ultimately was somebody who I do think also was responsible for the failure of the Snow White movie. People could say all the different reasons why. Look, it's not that I don't think Hollywood has original ideas. It's just that the people who control what movies get put out there and what don't, you see very often that some of the shittiest programming is what ultimately makes it to the movie theater. And then some of the more enlightened type of content, if it at all exists out there, is usually on streaming services anyway. But they put a lot of money behind Gal Gadot. They did. This is a person who was just some side character in a Fast and the Furious movie about, I don't know, 12, 15 maybe years ago. And she's been coasting on that ever since and getting all these roles. She is a horrible actress.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Because I don't think she's an actress. I think we know she served, she served in the IDF. And I think she's like a plant. She is. She's an operative.
וצחקנו ודיברנו והיה כיף. הייתי בטוחה שהסרט הזה הולך להצליח בענק. ואז קרה 7 באוקטובר. ומה שקורה, וזה קורה מאוד 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 בכל מיני תעשיות וגם בהוליווד, מופעל המון לחץ על סלבריטאים, על שחקנים, על יוצרים, להעלות דברים נגד ישראל.
I have to tell you, just now when I hear Hebrew, and unfortunately I hear it regularly because of the infestation around me in South Florida, it really makes my skin crawl. I cannot, I'm starting to have a reaction to just hearing Hebrew. It's disgusting to me.
It's in the eyes, Jen. It's in the eyes.
No, well, look, this is someone who served in the IDF. So I would not be remotely surprised to find out she's just shot and killed children or innocent people at all. So that's what they do. They mow the lawn. So she's participated in that.
Oh, I'm sure she's wiped out a few people here and there. Wouldn't surprise me.
וזה קרה. ולמרות אני יכולה תמיד להסביר ולנסות לתת קונטקסט לאנשים בעולם לגבי מה קורה ומה המציאות פה, ואני תמיד עושה את זה. אבל בסוף אנשים מחליטים לעצמם. והתאכזבתי שהסרט הושפע מזה מאוד, ולא הצליח בקופות. אבל זה מה שזה. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, that's why we didn't go see it. We didn't go see it because you're a total piece of shit and you can't act. I see people in the chat talking about Hebrew and Yiddish, and I actually can hear the difference. I can't speak either, but I can hear the difference. Just like I don't speak French and I don't speak Spanish, but I can tell them apart. It's sort of the same. Yiddish does not bother me. Yiddish reminds me of my bubby. I have very pleasant thoughts about Yiddish. Hebrew makes me want to vomit. So it's different.
Well, wasn't Yiddish spoken primarily, it's like an offshoot of German, and it's usually spoken by more working class.
It's a mixture of German and Hebrew, but conversational Hebrew that had evolved over, centuries. The modern Hebrew that they speak was not a spoken language until they created the Zionist state and made up the language to go with it. So they resurrected a language that wasn't a spoken language. It was never a spoken language. The Hebrew that merged with German and became Yiddish was spoken language. So they made up they're ridiculous. They're like the Disney World of West Asia. They're not real.
Well, none of that really surprises me, nor should it surprise any of you. But guys, we have almost 250 watching, only 135 likes. If you have not smashed that like button, please do us a solid. Make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure that you do subscribe if you are new here. please make sure that you share the stream if you would be so kind. We obviously are a small but mighty and growing channel. As you know, we recently passed 50,000 subscribers. We're now at over 50,400. Like I said, we only really need to grow about 1,000 subscribers a week or every other week, and Jen will live long enough to see us get to 100,000.
He's trying to get us to 100. He wants to get me the plaque before I die.
I just don't want Jen to die before she gets to have at least something to bury herself with. That's all.
Well, we need to ask them if they'll give me half a plaque. Just tell them, you don't think I'm long for this world. I can't fight the algorithm. I'm never going to make it to 100. Just see if they'll cut a plaque in half.
Well, there are ones out there that people who get to 50,000, there's like these guys that end up making their own plaques. It's actually kind of interesting, you know. But if there is a counterpoint to the whole, you know, kind of like Gadot disposition, and you know, you have been saying for the longest time that it is so important to distinguish between Jews and Zios, which is something that this movement has been hell-bent on not allowing there to be any separation of whatsoever. Zero. That we must adhere to this idea. And again, it's a dying concept. We all know that. But we cannot and must not ignore that reality. That there is... Are you
going to play that guy that you said looked like my new boyfriend?
Yes. You sent this to me.
I sent this to Peter because I thought it was great, because this is really how I feel. And he said, that sounds like it'll be your next boyfriend. I don't know what
if you want to see or hear exactly what Jen's thinking from a man's perspective, this is it.
What about politics?
I don't give a shit.
You don't find it a great
I really don't care about
trove
politics.
Of
some people
material?
do. I don't. I think the system is corrupt. Every time I'm walking on the street, somebody's like, hey, vote for so-and-so. I'm like, it's all corrupt. Anarchy is the only way we're going to change anything. Violence. Kill a politician. That's the only way you can change.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're joking.
No.
Are you serious?
Yeah, voting is not going to make a difference. It has never. Not in 100 years.
So what would you like to see?
I'd like to see some politicians start getting murdered and reform the government.
Oh my God.
Now,
I didn't say it.
Now, as dangerous as that type of language obviously is, because it is threatening, and you can be charged with a crime for doing that. It's Ari Schaefer. Ari Schaefer, like Jen, like Katie Halper.
Oh, is that who that is? I don't know. I didn't know who it was.
No, he's a comedian, but
okay.
he's not trying to be funny here. He's being serious.
Love him.
Now, if anybody arrests him, like, you know that the Zios are on the phone saying, arrest this guy, he's just going to say, hey, I was doing a bit. It was a joke.
That doesn't matter anymore. We have no free speech, so it doesn't really matter. He just doesn't give a shit. But, you know, again, he's not giving specifics. He's speaking in hypotheticals, in the sense of he's not naming which politicians, and he's certainly not hiring someone to go do it. So at this point, it's just a theory.
That's true.
To one that's not corrupted. I like to get business out of government, and they're not going to do it. So the only way to do this is start killing people.
Is it that exactly?
Look around the world. How has anything changed around the world? How has any regime change happen around the world? Violence. That's the only way. You think people in Arab countries are that much different than us?
Yeah.
Violence. That's the only way you depose a system that doesn't represent the people anymore.
I mean, I think the wonderful thing about the United States is that we can vote, and you do change administration.
Your vote doesn't go anywhere. Your vote doesn't do anything.
Yes, it does.
You can now be arrested and never tried if they say you're a terrorist. Never tried in your life. Just arrested and held forever. Who voted for that?
So shoot them all.
No, not shoot them all. Start shooting them until they get business out of politics.
You only probably need to kill so many before they'll get the point. I mean, I think that's what he's saying.
Well, that's what I said regarding Mangione. That's the thing that people do tend to misunderstand, is that you don't have to get them all. What you have to recognize is that once you get one, you've already put the idea in people's heads. This is actually throughout history. I mean, remember, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand is what changed the 20th century. It changed the world forever. It only takes one. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. Kennedy is one of the 5 greatest commander-in-chiefs that we ever had. He's right there with Washington, Lincoln, and the 2 Roosevelts. And he only got to serve 3 years in the White House. Imagine.
I think the main thing about what he's saying, that why it's so funny and why I think it's true, it isn't about going and killing people. No. It's the historical reality that it is always comes to violence to overthrow a system, and that we're not voting our way out of it. The voting is done. I don't know that the voting was ever a thing. Quite honestly, it seems that as soon as everybody got able to vote, the vote didn't matter anymore.
Well, I think that voting was always a thing. I just think elections have been stolen forever, and that at the end
I don't think it's ever truly represented our electoral process in this country, for whether it was that women weren't able to vote, whether it was blacks weren't able to vote, whether it's gerrymandered districts or roles that are purged, whatever it is. I do not think we've had the majority speak in this country represented in our policies ever. So no. He's right. And he's right about that. If you look historically, any real change has been violent. It's in reality.
Yeah, the significant policies that have been passed, particularly in the 20th century, whether by the Roosevelts, whether by what was initially through JFK, but came through LBJ, and then Nixon, it all came because the people were willing to rise up. Now, obviously, a lot of things have changed over time, and we're entering a new phase of where people are going to be rising up because it's just obvious. This is why we talk about Nick Fuentes. We don't talk about him because we love him. We talk about him because he is speaking. He is the mouthpiece for millions of people in this country who are ready to do what this guy's saying. They're done. Like, they are done. You can't continue to, as you said, Jen, like with the Palestinians. If you think you can keep a boot on a person's neck forever, it's not going to happen. Eventually, people are going to say, I don't care if I live or die. I just know that whatever is going to happen now is going to be how I want to be remembered. And there are a lot of people out there who feel this way. How much more obvious can it get? Ari is only saying what I am sure he has heard from countless people. And he's just repeating what they said.
And they start representing who we are instead of their money interests. Yeah, violence. That's the only way shit changes, man.
Okay.
Look at history. Tell me when a regime has changed with voting. I mean, I know.
I'm not trying.
That's not fair because you haven't studied this stuff.
Well, no, I'm not trying to, murder politicians. I'm not trying to do what I don't like that others do that I would like to change. So I will shoot somebody because I'm pissed off that they're shooting somebody else.
Yeah.
It's not the way that I think, but that's fine. We think differently.
I think even if you don't want to shoot somebody, don't vote. Voting is you complicitly saying, I support this system, and I don't support it anymore. I don't. We're killing people in Yemen. We're murdering families in Yemen.
I mean, if our vote really
When was this? This might have been before October 7th.
Well, you sent this to me. I don't know.
Yeah, but just because it circulated on my feed recently, it could be older. So the fact that he's talking about Yemen could indicate that this is from before.
Oh, no, we're still killing people in Yemen.
Oh, of course. But that's why that he didn't necessarily start with.
Remember, the beautiful talking point from the Zion-Nazis now is not that they aren't committing a genocide. It's that, how come you only care about our genocide? How come you don't care about Yemen or Sudan? I'm like, we do.
We've spoken about it many times about Yemen. I have a lot to say about Yemen. I actually would like all of us to not pay taxes and send all of what we have that we're withholding to Yemen, because they're the only country that seems to abide by international law. So I thought maybe we should support them.
That aren't associated with any sort of terrorist thing. It was just an oopsie when we kill a wedding party. And Obama, the fucking hope change guy, just refused to comment on it. That's cool. Do what you want. It's not going to change. Your voting is not going to change that. I know one way that it'll change. I can look at history and tell you this is the way things change. Look at whenever a black guy gets shot. It's like, oh, it's bad. If this is a riot, no one comments on it. Those things go under the radar. When there's a riot in Baltimore, it's like, hold on, we've got to rethink the system here in Baltimore because people went crazy. That's just in history, here and elsewhere. That's the only way.
Facts. Facts. Voting is not helping us. Voting is not getting us out of this. Voting is sort of like this facade that they put up to make people think that we're participating in some way, that this is a government by us, for us, of us, blah, blah, blah. So, but that's a facade, right? We're an oligarchy that is like slipping into full-blown fascism here. Like we're there. I mean, we're there. We're having people pulled off of the streets by unidentified masked people and taken to parts unknown with no due process. We have children's parents being deported and teachers having to foster their students because their parents got sent. Like, this is some fascist Gestapo shit we're seeing. So we're there.
Yeah, we are there, and perfect timing to bring on Mr. Robinson, because he actually wrote an article that dropped earlier today about the complicity that so many of these content creators have in us getting to this point. You know, the second that something kind of springs up, like, I mean, not just the genocide. I mean, this is a site, it's been a plethora of different things that has just been thrown at us over the last several years. I mean, I think the Great Awakening, obviously, for many people, started in 2015 with Bernie and even with Trump. I mean, you got to give both of them their due for what that sort of movement created at that time. But over the past decade, we have seen just what a facade it really is, which is why you adhered to what Ari was saying, which is, do we really have any reason to believe that voting is what's going to make this change? For somebody who has lived in both, or is from the UK and has now lived in the States, I think having that juxtaposition between the two, even though there's probably a lot of similarities, but certainly some differences, I think is obviously going to be key to understanding that in terms of the situation that we're sitting in today, which, of course, as we know, isn't looking too good. But you know him from Current Affairs. He is an author and a podcaster, and he is somebody who we have connected with from an old friend. Nathan J. Robinson, welcome to Revolutionary Change.
Hey, nice to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so honored to have you. I almost feel a little like fangirl, but what I don't understand is, how are you so young? But I feel like I've been watching you forever. How is this possible?
Well, I'm 36. We've been doing Current Affairs now. We just had our 10-year anniversary. So time is passing very quickly.
Okay. But you are very young, in fact, so I'm not delusional.
So.
Okay. Okay.
I don't feel very young. I'm actually turning 36 on Saturday, so I'm thinking a lot about
birthday
aging.
To you.
Thanks.
I like how the accent just, it's like this. It's like, it's
very strange. I never notice it, is the thing. And I'm much more British with my parents. I slip into almost a complete British accent, and then with some Americans, I'm more American, and then some pronunciations are totally inconsistent. It's very strange.
Where are you from? Where's your family from?
Well, I was born in England, and we lived near Cambridge until I was about 5 years old, and then I was raised mostly in Florida, Sarasota, Florida. So
really, I'm in Florida. I'm in South Florida.
Nice.
Right now I'm in St. Augustine, but normally I'm in South Florida.
Love Florida. I mean, you know,
some of it.
Florida.
I'm in the Panhandle. I think there's a lot. Nice. Florida in a lot of ways, I think, is kind of reflective in the country. They say so goes Florida, so goes the nation.
True.
There is a lot of truth to that. But I'm curious, coming from the UK, the most obvious, caveat that I would just want you to address is that the average American, unfortunately, is extremely naive when it comes to the basics of what a single-payer healthcare system would look like. Now, obviously, the NHS has been depleted, to say the least, for the years. The Tories have tried to have their way with it. Maggie Thatcher gave them a lot of bad ideas, to say the least. But I'm curious if you could just explain sort of the basic premise of what it means to live in a single-payer system that the average American just simply can't comprehend.
Well, the basic principle is incredibly simple, which is to say that when you call 999 in England or 911 here, there are three services: there's police, fire, and ambulance. Now, in the United States, police and fire are government services. They are government departments. But ambulance is not. Ambulance is private companies. It's not a municipal service most places. Some places have municipal ambulances. But the healthcare system is totally privatized. Well, in the UK, basically, that third branch of the emergency services just operates like the other two. So hospitals are government, for the most part. There are some private hospitals, but a hospital is like a fire station. It is owned by, it is owned and operated by the state. And also, like a fire department, you don't get a bill when you have an emergency. The fire department comes up to your house, they put the fire out, hopefully, and you don't get an invoice at the end. And so the same principle applies to a hospital, an ambulance. When you have an emergency, you call an ambulance. The ambulance comes get you. They take you to the hospital, and it's paid for through tax revenue in the same way that a fire service in the United States is paid through it for. And isn't it crazy that incredibly simple principle of a health service that operates in the same way as other services we do understand and know and have here is so difficult for Americans to kind of conceive of or comprehend?
Yeah, here's one more. So we have, years ago, before like the Industrial Revolution, we didn't have public education. So then we had K through 12, right? It was K through 12. Yeah. So we now have K through 12. And the idea to these people of adding an additional 4 years,
yes, yes. No, you're so right.
It's so
people
crazy.
Are like free college. That's crazy. But it's like, crazy. But you have free elementary school. We don't make them take out student loans to go to kindergarten or 5th grade. So we're just talking about extending it so that, and after high school, there's 4 more years and it operates the same way as your public high school does. Is that crazy? And so it's incredible that these very, very simple ideas, and not just simple ideas, but ideas that are not foreign, right? Ideas that literally have analogs, very close analogs within this country that operate and people use and interact with every day. It's incredible to kind of make that inconceivable or crazy.
Yeah,
it definitely is. And I'm just kind of beside myself that we have reached this point where I just feel that people have just been beaten into the ground so hard that they just have kind of accepted this malaise in many ways. But it's also given rise, and we're not going to dive into him, but I wish people understood why somebody like Nick Fuentes is catching so much fire right now. This is a desperate country in a way that I just don't think people truly understand from an economic standpoint. You add in the layer of we are cucks to Israel, literally and figuratively, and it is just creating so much volatility that I am kind of surprised that it hasn't created more Mangionis yet. That doesn't mean it's not coming. I don't understand how much tighter that this corrupt system and its government thinks that it can squeeze us before there is just full-blown anarchy everywhere.
No, I certainly agree with that. We're not treading in an encouraging direction, and unless we on the left, those of us who are, who still believe in humane principles and still believe that institutions that serve the people rather than exploiting and extracting wealth from the people can be built, and that this kind of future, a good future, can be had. I mean, unless we manage to get organized and reverse these trends, we are headed for a very dark future, whether it is a descent into kind of anarchy, whether it is a descent into fascism, or whether it is some horrible hybrid of the two, where you have roving gangs of street thugs and death squads, and a breakdown of central authority and warlordism, and it could get very dark and bleak.
Jen, you're on mute.
Sorry, because my people walked in, so I muted it. But I think it's going to get really bad. Yeah. I think that, between our implosion on the world stage, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, we're really watching the final years of American empire and then the rise of BRICS. I don't think that it's going to be the America show forever. And I think it's coming sooner rather than later. And I think when that happens, that we're not going to, you know, when we're not the world's leader anymore, I think it's going to be harder here. I think things are going to be very expensive. I think gas is going to be very expensive. I think people that can grow their own food are going to be infinitely better off. And I think it's going to get bad here.
Yeah. Might be good for the world, but not necessarily to have a greater balance of power and to have the people. A lot of people will be relieved to see the steady decline of U.S. empire.
I am. I don't mind it. Like, I'm totally okay with my country not being the world hegemon. I'm good with it. I'm good living in a country that doesn't have military bases all over the world. I'm good with the not being the country that's the, you know, the lunchroom bully. I don't need that kind. I can be happy in countries that are not in charge. I can.
And I think this is a good opportunity because obviously you dropped this today. So obviously we want to cover it. It's an important talking point. You know, we make a point on this channel to really not get into it regarding other content creators unless it's absolutely warranted. If there is a necessary element to that, it's the fact that, well, we know who leads the charge. I mean, Matt Iglesias is just, don't even get me started with him. But we all know that Ben Shapiro clearly is somewhat of a conduit directly to the state of Israel. His message is, it's clear that it is. There's no question that his partner in crime, you know, their affiliation directly with Netanyahu cannot be understated. But there's a lot of content creators that are out there that are kind of just feeding directly into this problem. This problem is a really big issue that while you can't place all of the blame on the likes of Buttigieg, Iglesias, Shapiro, you know, Peterson, we could go on and on. But there is a level of responsibility that they do bear. And obviously want to hear your thoughts on this article that you just dropped earlier today.
Well, you know, I am more inclined than you, partly because it's kind of my job or my little niche that I've carved out. I'm more inclined to engage with pundits and commentators and analysts. And I mean, I do media criticism. So I read a lot of terrible arguments on blogs and I watch a lot of terrible news segments and I write about them and I debunk bad arguments. And I kind of have, if you've ever picked up the print edition of Current Affairs, you know, it's full of kind of jokes and satire at these people's expense. We have a lot of fun. You know, we did, you know, we've done comics about Ben Shapiro and Pete Buttigieg. And essentially, you know, in the light of the article is arguing that, you know, some of these figures who in times where the stakes are lower, you can kind of laugh at them and treat them as clowns or buffoons. And you can even write them off. You could just go, they're just like buzzing flies. You know, in the light of the Gaza genocide, and I think everyone is basically obligated at this point now that every human rights organization has declared that this is a genocide. In the light of an ongoing genocide that is funded, armed, backed by the United States, can only continue because of the support of the United States. It becomes these people who it's easy to make fun of, become very, very deeply sinister because they are the intellectual defenders and rationalizers of a horrendous crime against humanity. And I think it's really important to start seeing them in a slightly different light, which is not just clownish, but really something disturbing about these people. You know, people who can look at a situation in which their country is directly causing the most gruesome, I mean, anyone who's seen pictures from Gaza of what's happened to Palestinian children, I mean, I've seen pictures that are going to haunt me until my death, right? They're like seared into my mind after I've seen, you know, dismembered Palestinian children. And anyone who knows that's going on and either ignores the issue, as some of them just don't write about it, or they make snarky comments about it, or they spend their time criticizing the Palestine solidarity movement, like, is deeply, deeply rotted to the core, like, and is doing something that is truly like as depraved as you can be, and that's kind of the point I wanted to make in this.
When I think of some of these content creators, we've collaborated with several. We've obviously had strong opinions about several. Do you think that there's a distinction between those that are being directly paid by an NGO that is affiliated with Israel versus those that actually believe this nonsense? I mean, maybe there are some true believers out there. Perhaps Ben Shapiro is a true believer, but I think there is a lot of money to go around by basically being a mouthpiece for corporate special interests. We've been adamant about that when it came to what's been happening, not just in Ukraine or Yemen, any of these places, but especially Israel. And there is no question that there is a lot of money to be had by just saying what they want you to say. And the Israel lobby, they pay well, very well.
There's certainly, I mean, all of these people are very wealthy. Matt Iglesias, I don't know if he's the #1 political blog, but he's making, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, plus, of course, speaking engagements. And a lot of that money is essentially contingent upon not going near the subject of Palestine in a way that can threaten your career. I mean, we know very well that if you say certain things, I experienced this personally. I was fired from the Guardian newspaper because I tweeted critically of U.S. military aid to Israel, and so we know it's a.
When was that? When did that happen?
That was actually 2021. Yeah.
So it wasn't even post. Again, people.
No.
Thing about the Zionist talking point of everything started on October 7th. No, it didn't.
I was fired for the mildest thing. I literally, the Congress had just attached weapons aid to Israel to like a COVID relief bill, and I said, I tweeted like it's the law that anytime you pass any piece of legislation, you got to throw in some weapons for Israel, and I got a note from the editor-in-chief saying of the Guardian, who said, it said private and confidential, and it was in the subject line. Well, of course, I immediately leaked it, after they fired me. But they said, this is anti-Semitism. Take this down. And it was kind of shocking to me because, like, obviously, there's nothing anti-Semitic about criticizing weapons aid to Israel. Like there's just nothing anti-Semitic. It's very hard to construe it that way. But the hammer came down, and then they said, you can't write for the paper anymore, which was just extraordinary. I mean, I've been writing about this stuff. I've been writing about how the media, the range of permissible debate on Israel-Palestine in mainstream media is very, very narrow. I'd written about that for a long time, and it wasn't until I personally got the email where I was like, "Oh, this is how it works, right? You step out of line, they fire you, and there's your career gone."
It is kind of amazing how much of a line so many people have to walk. And I've been following this for quite some time. But Jen, I mean, you've lived this and you know it better than anybody.
I do. I mean, they are completely indoctrinated and brainwashed. Like, this is not normal. These are psychopathic people. Like, that's the thing. And they cannot be reasoned with. Now, people like these people, a lot of them, I don't know if they really believe it or if it's really just a matter of their take for the media, if it's their persona, if it's what they're being paid for, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Well, it doesn't make a difference, right?
No, it doesn't matter.
Because the action's the same.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. No, I'm very familiar with it. But that's what I said. Like, the only difference is that the people that actually believe it, they're beyond any sort of reason. These people are just completely morally bankrupt.
I wrestle with the question, like, what's good faith, what's bad faith, what do people actually believe? Maybe people who are paid to believe something end up, sincerely believing it because it's easier to when you actually. I don't know. It's hard for me to psychoanalyze these people. I only know what they write. It's certainly correct, and I think this is a really important point that you raise, is that they can't be reasoned with, and I think there's evidence of that. So I talk about Matt Iglesias there, who it's interesting that he poses as a champion of arguments and facts and logic and reason, and he often presents himself as the kind of voice of centrist reason against all the loony, crazy ideological leftists. But it actually turns out that he is not willing to engage in any kind of debate. So years ago, he blocked me and the magazine I work for, Current Affairs, on Twitter, right? And I make fun of him, but I'm interested in like hashing it out. And he will not actually have a debate about Palestine. This is what's extraordinary. He will make claims like saying like leftists don't care about Palestine, they just care about power. Like he'll make a claim like that. But he will not engage with a debate in a debate with a Palestinian, right? He will not have a dialogue with a Palestinian to explain who could challenge that and say, no, actually, here's the evidence of genocide. So what's extraordinary is he has sealed himself off from any kind of actual discourse that could lead to him having to defend his position. He just sends snarky tweets. And so you're totally right that they refuse to even enter the arena of rational debate.
Right. Well, these are bad faith actors, right? Like these are not people. This is what I often talk about is willfully ignorant, right? They know what their position is and they'll just ignore any contrary evidence. That way they can just have their position. They don't want to know. They don't want to know anything that could change their position. Whereas I know many people that are actually ignorant. Those people are often interested if information is presented. These people, which I often find are elitist, affluent Zios. These are people that, and not even just Zios, but the elitist contingent of people that just think they know everything. They're willfully ignorant because they have access to the information, right? The information is there. People in my family that are Zios, they could find this information. They choose not to so that they could stay with their position because that's comfortable for them.
Well, I think there's a test of whether that's true, which is basically I put the challenge to people who disagree with me. Anyone who wants to defend Israel is welcome to read the writings that we've put out in Current Affairs and to try and refute them. And as I say, people like Iglesias, Noah Smith, multiple people tried to get Ben Shapiro to debate me. They never got any response. I've written critically of Iglesias and Smith. They never write a refutation, right? They never explain why we're wrong. And so if people are interested in figuring out, who is intellectually serious and who isn't, it's not the people who say, I am Mr. Intellectually Serious, because that's what Iglesias did. I'm Mr. Intellectually Serious. The left isn't serious. The people who are serious, you can tell because they are actually willing to have to engage on the facts and the arguments. And what you will notice is that the critics of our position in Current Affairs, the critics of, I wrote this book with Noam Chomsky, and what's incredible is we haven't had many negative reviews. Now, you would think that because Chomsky's positions are so radical and controversial,
right,
like people would try and rebut them, but they just ignore Chomsky. They just act like he's not there.
Right. Well, I think that's what they do for people when they don't have an argument. Right. Look, I ran 2 congressional races against someone that pretended we weren't even there twice. So I know exactly what that's like.
They just pretend you're not there.
They pretend we're not there.
What was that experience like writing the book with Chomsky?
It was the most gratifying intellectual experience of my life because Chomsky was very, very formative for me. So much of my worldview is influenced by him. So much of my writing is like trying to carry on his intellectual project. And so when he became a subscriber to Current Affairs and said really nice things about Current Affairs, very, very gratifying for me. And then I approached him in 2021 and said, could you think we could write together? Because I think you should have a new book out and you haven't had like a big book in a while. We could do something that's really contemporary and that comments on all these things that are happening now. And then he said yes, and we worked together for a year or more. And but it was also marked by tragedy because as we were getting close to the completion of the manuscript of the book, he had a major stroke. He has been unable to speak publicly, write, answer an email ever since. That was in the summer of 2023. So I was kind of left on my own to finish the book and get it out and finish it in the way that I thought he would want it finished. So it was like a very emotional experience, because it was such a satisfying thing to work with him and to get to pick his brain. And he just knows everything. Like, he remembers like all these like the diplomatic documents from 1956. He knows every source. But then there was the tragedy of losing him at the end and being left totally on my own.
I mean, have you had a chance to even communicate at all with him? I mean, since
No.
this is no, he's just sort of incommunicado now.
Has outside his immediate family. I don't think anyone has.
That's
Well, if he only has so much time left, I mean, I believe he's 95 now or 96. He's he's the greatest left-thinking intellectual of the 20th century, as far as I'm concerned. When people think about some of the people that are more so noted on the right, particularly his conversations with William F. Buckley, those are the ones that really always came to mind for me. I thought he was always the best intellectual giant who knew exactly how to sell the premise of not even necessarily socialism, but just what is needed to have a functioning, healthy society. He was really special at that.
Well, the story of him and Buckley is kind of fascinating, because they actually only had one conversation. There's lots of clips from it, but they have one conversation on William Buckley's firing line. Buckley invited him on, and Buckley liked to invite on leftists so he could, because he fancied himself a great debater, so he could like pummel.
He was a smart man and thought he knew it all.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. But Chomsky just completely humiliates him, right? It's a conversation about the Vietnam War, and Chomsky argues that the Vietnam War is a heinous, indefensible moral atrocity. We need to get out of Vietnam, and Buckley has no real arguments. And Chomsky says that after the cameras stopped rolling, Buckley was furious. And said they'd have a rematch, but never ever invited Chomsky on again. Didn't want anything to do with Chomsky, and realized he'd made a mistake, because, as I say, other people, smarter people than Buckley, realized that the thing you do with Chomsky is you ignore him. You just act like he's not there, and then he's sort of not there because he's never let on the mainstream media. And he just publishes with these little lefty presses and is read by leftists. And, people who discover him are, go, wow, this guy's arguments are very, very powerful. But most people will never get to see him.
Right. That's the thing. You have to proactively seek out Chomsky in your life. Like, that has to happen at some point in your young reasoning, or when you sort of develop and enlighten yourself, because you're right. It's not offered. It's not something that's mainstream offered. You definitely have to find it. And the people that tend to find it are the already people that probably don't need it as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nobody spoke the truth about, and we've always maintained there was the Bernie Sanders of 2015 and 2016. And then there was something that changed after that. But whatever he was at that time, Chomsky spoke as highly and as effectively about Bernie in that moment as could have been spoken. And that is something that I will always remember. I knew of him, but in that moment, especially because I was really engaged on Bernie that first go around.
Oh, yeah.
Felt that there was something there. There was something that was real that hadn't been seen in a long time.
That's right.
And
I think that's right. I mean, and so many people, I actually, I did my dissertation on democratic socialists, and I was talking about, what makes a democratic socialist. So I interviewed, well over 100 people who were in the DSA and who had been radicalized at some point, and they were all young. And, I was asking them, what turned you into a socialist? And so many of them, it was Bernie. I mean, so many of them, like just hearing Bernie articulate things that they had felt but they'd never heard someone say was, I mean, for some people it was a life-changing thing, because they had felt so alone. They had felt like they were going crazy. They're seeing this dysfunctional society, and everyone's telling them it's fine. And then Bernie comes along and says, no, it's not fine. You're not crazy. The things you're seeing and feeling, they are real. And we're going to fight them together. I mean, that was such a powerful message, and so many people around my age had their political consciousnesses forged in 2016. Before that, for those of us who were kind of adults at the time, the Occupy movement was very important, but the Bernie Sanders campaign was also incredibly important. 2016.
Well, what I did say, which was important at the time, and it's still relevant now, I say it to the billionaire class and to anybody here who is still down in the dumps about where this country is going. They can't have it all. They're not going to have it all.
I didn't know you did impressions. These are good.
Yeah, no, he does a few really good ones. And like, if you close your eyes, like I've had it where he'll do Trump, like we'll be on the phone and he'll do it where I'm not looking at him, and it's really good. I will.
Oh,
say.
Yeah.
So when I was living in South Florida, I had to get a form for my commercial real estate license notarized. And so I went to this place. I was in Davie, very conservative. And the place I went into was like a shrine for Trump. And so I met the person. We had a nice conversation, and she said, she eventually, I did my impression and she liked it. And she's like, you've got to let me call my sister. So she calls her sister and she convinces her that, hey, you have no idea who's in the office right now, and gives her the phone. I'm like, hey, listen, I just want to say hi. I hope you're doing good. Your sister here, she's a great person. She's running a great office, and you're making America great. Nathan, I'm telling you, like she started crying. Like she was like,
that's amazing.
You're so great. Eventually, she had to tell him that was just a guy who knew how to do his voice.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. But nothing compares to doing something that if I was now. I want to remind the American people that if there is anybody in the 20th century who destroyed this country better, no one did it better than I did. I did NAFTA. I did trade relations with China. I did the Telecom Act. I did the crime bill. And I think about, because in my opinion, I still say George W. Bush is the worst president of my lifetime. And a lot of that has to do with his administration. But there are so many things that Clinton set in motion that, Reagan could have only dreamed of doing.
You're right. I did a whole book on Bill Clinton called Super Predator in 2016, which you should check out, because it focuses on, it's called Super Predator, Bill Clinton's use and abuse of Black America. And it focuses on what Clinton did. It focuses on the crime bill, welfare to work, Haiti, the mentally disabled.
I mean, dude, what the two of them did to Haiti, for the love of God, you want to talk, everyone says who should be in the Hague and who should get dragged there.
Oh, the Clintons.
Two of them should be in the fucking Hague right now.
And the way the administration actually actively denied the Rwanda genocide as it was happening, trying to convince people there wasn't a genocide because they didn't want to be pressured to do anything about it. I mean, it was really, really ugly stuff. I was just, I wrote one article on Bill Clinton, but there was so much evil there that it literally, the article just spiraled into a book, and eventually, like, my first political book was about Bill Clinton, which I really didn't expect. It just turned out that he was so horrible.
Well, let me ask you, like, who do you think is the bigger source of evil? Do you think it's her? Do you think it's him?
Well, he had power, so he actually, I mean, she was a United States senator, but I think if she had become president, I mean, she was the Secretary of State, and obviously, like, the blood of a lot of Libyans is on her hands, and she did vote for Iraq. So it's hard to say, actually.
I think she strikes me as infinitely more nefarious than he does.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I think he's a total piece of shit and should be prosecuted for innumerable amounts of crimes. But I don't find him as, like, wanting to hurt people.
He's not a warrior the same way.
Right. I think of her as somebody who actually enjoys hurting people.
He's like a very unprincipled guy who's very self-interested. But she is yeah, I mean, she seems to delight in blood.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. She's more evil than he is. Yeah.
I certainly think a Hillary presidency would have been a very ugly
And
experience.
do you notice the amount of people that are still saying stuff like, "Oh, well, if Kamala had won, everything would just be better now."
That's people of the privileged class. And there's a lot of them that love, again, when you're in, it's kind of like the Jewish Zionist versus the Christian Zionist. The Jewish Zionist tends to be of the very neoliberal class. They tend to be very affluent. They tend to reside in places like DC, New York, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, etc. Whereas the Christian Zionist typically is not of the same, if not at all affluent, but they tend to make up a substantially larger portion of the population in a lot of the rural parts, particularly in the heartland and the South. And when you get right down to it, I think that there is this sort of great awakening that we are noticing right now amongst the people that have supported Trump and they are moving away from him. There is still this heavy contingent of people that are part of that uber liberal class that just choose to pretend that the Democratic Party has not been a colossal failure of epic proportions for multiple generations, at least since Kennedy's assassination. Like there is just this refusal to accept that this is not the party of FDR and JFK. It's just not. And
yeah.
No, please.
I mean, which is you wonder, given that every week seemingly there is a headline that says Democratic Party reaches new low in public opinion polls. The registration is at an all-time low. People just don't want to be associated with the party. Their approval, people don't approve of Donald Trump's policies, but the only thing they hate more than Donald Trump's policies is the Democratic Party. And you wonder if is there some bottom at which a reckoning would occur? Like at some point would they go like, oh, clearly we've fucked this up in a very big way, but it doesn't seem like it. It could go to zero, and they'd still insist they were doing everything right.
Yeah, because they're still able to make money. So as long as they're able to make money and their consultant class friends are able to make money, they'll just these are the people that are just going to be the last ones holding the party.
Yeah,
I think you've seen your last national Democratic president. I do not think we're going to see another person from this incarnation of the Democratic Party win a national race again. I think they will exist in places like California. I mean, you're going to have them in some places, but their numbers are just not there.
You're right. I mean, the polls right now suggest that is absolutely true. I mean, unless something fundamental changes, given that they lost this election, given that they don't realize how close Biden squeaked in 2020 solely because of the pandemic, right? The pandemic made Trump very unpopular, and they still don't realize that was a fluke, right? And that ultimately, they, as you say, how do they come back from it? They don't have any candidates that we can conceive. I mean, they have all these nasty, amoral consultant types like Pete Buttigieg and Gavin Newsom, who are just repulsive people.
That's because that's who they are. I mean, at the end of the day, this incarnation of this party, right? Which isn't to say that things don't change over, a certain amount of time, that it couldn't evolve. I don't know. But this incarnation, this corporate elitist Democratic Party, nobody wants it. I always call it New Coke. We don't need New Coke. There's no point for New Coke. I actually think any chance we have of getting a Labor Party or an anti-war party is going to come off of the Republican Party. It looks like they're going to have some sort of split between their neocons and their America First that don't want to spend money in all these foreign wars. And that might be where we have an opportunity to get any sort of anti-war action. But it is not coming from the Democrats. It just isn't. And they do not have a single candidate in their little arsenal that could win a national race. Not one.
And it's so obvious that they're going to pump up Newsom. And I think that the counter to that ticket is going to probably be Whitmer. But it's not.
Good luck to you with that.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to try what they're going to try. But the fact is, the numbers are bearing it out. Colin, please pull up what I just sent you. There is no question that they are fading fast. They really don't understand that. In this moment, especially, they had I really would have to think back to any moment in which a person was as low on the totem pole as they could possibly be in a given situation. And I think back to 2005, 2006, where the remnants of just sort of the end of dealing with George W. Bush and his people had come to fruition, and the Democrats were able to sweep in during that midterms, which obviously laid the foundation for Obama. But these numbers don't lie. This is so painfully obvious that this party is dead as a freaking doornail. And the reason they're dead, I don't care if they're down in the blue states. I don't even care if they're down in the red states. They are down horrifically bad in swing states. And that is everything. And this is coming from neoliberals, your favorite fucking newspaper. It's coming from the New York Times.
Yeah, and you know, as I say, this is registered voters, right? So this is not a Kamala Harris problem. This is a Democratic Party. This is and all the excuses. Oh, she only had a hundred days to campaign or whatever, right? This is a systemic problem.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, they stand for nothing. They offer nothing. All they do is say, we're not Trump. Trump bad. We're not Trump. That's new Coke. Nobody needs it. If you're not offering solutions and you're just another elitist that's looking for a payout, which is all that they are, they don't even care if they win races because they'll still feed their friends in the consultant class every time they run a campaign. That's why they don't care. They make money either way, whether it's insider trading or they love to be in the minority, because when Trump's in power, they could sit there and fundraise and say, we didn't do it, it's him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I also think speaks to just the sort of disassociative state that many people feel when it comes to electoral politics, that what good does it really do? It's two sides of the same genocidal coin. You know, we're facing that reality. And I am the mind that, you know, it's going to take boots on the ground and out in the streets for any real change to happen. But for us, it is so clear that this is sort of a dead issue. And what's going to be interesting, just from an electoral politics perspective, how is Shama Sawant going to do against Adam Smith in that congressional race in Washington state? How is Butch Ware going to do against Katie Porter in the gubernatorial race in California? I think a lot of it obviously hinges on how much capital they're able to raise. And it isn't like they need to raise a boatload of money, but you need to raise a few $1 million if you're going to be competitive. And then I think that could, you know, potentially prove where the change is going to come from. Because in the end, Jed, you've often said, it's not about how much your opponent has. It's about how much do you have to actually get out there and get your message out.
Right. Yeah. There's point of diminishing marginal returns in it. You only need what you need to do what you need to do. If you're outspent, but you could do what you need to do, that's all that you need to do.
You know, I pointed out to, I think on Twitter earlier that it just occurred to me how shocking it is that Chuck Schumer, he's going to be the Senate minority leader like forever, like as long as he wants to be. And like, if you look at these numbers that you've got up on the screen, right? That's a failed party that needs new leadership, right? If you had a company, unless it was Tesla, where like you know, the stock price could plummet and nothing will cause them to oust Elon Musk. But a normal company, right? If the company like is losing money, the board gets together and they replace the CEO. So isn't it crazy that like it's inconceivable that they would ever replace Chuck Schumer, a guy with, you know, no charisma, has no, you know, who's totally incapable of rallying the country at this moment? We know, I mean, I know, you know, we all have our criticisms of Bernie Sanders, but I think we know that the smart move for Democrats right now, seeing Bernie's fighting oligarchy tour, would be, well, you make Bernie Sanders your Senate leader, right? That's your most popular politician. That's your guy who should be representing you in the Senate. When people think of Senate Democrats, they should think of Bernie because he's literally their most popular or least unpopular figure. And yet they won't even conceive of doing that.
Well, technically, is Bernie a Democrat? Isn't Bernie an independent that caucuses with the Democrats? And that's, but you see, to me, that I now see it much more as that's his role that he's played, and that he's always been Mick resistance, and he's always been that. And it's disappointing, but it's reality, which has now led a lot of us to understand that we're not voting our way out of this mess.
Bernie's independent thing is very strange. Like, he made some noises about like a few months ago like he said things that kind of implied that he believed we needed a third party, but then he'll never break with the Democrats. It's very weird. Like, make up
No,
your
it's
mind.
intentional. That's what I mean. It's like he's playing the role of, like, the spoiler, but he isn't. He's really there at the end of the day to keep everybody in the party, like the big tent. And I mean, I don't want to be with them in the tent anymore. They stink.
If he legitimately went for it in 2016 at the convention, which he had every right to do, and ultimately decided, okay, I'm gonna join the Green Party ticket, and I am going to make a run of this in the general election. We have these two horrifically bad candidates. What can we do to make a difference? Well, how different do you think this country would look today if, in fact, Bernie had decided, you know what, I'm not going to let you cheat me out of this, which they clearly did. So how do you think that would have unfolded if he had chosen to go that route?
Oh, it's hard. I mean, I just don't know, because obviously every effort would have been made to destroy him, and how successful that would be, we just don't know. I mean, I think he would have had a lot of people behind him who would be very excited by that, and I think when he didn't do that, it deflated a lot of people. I mean, one of the things we were talking about, how galvanizing that 2016 moment was, but it was also really deflating for people when they all got their hopes up, and then all of a sudden, it was over. And then we were faced with Hillary and Trump, and these were the only two options. And that was really, really deeply demoralizing. And I think even if he hadn't won, Bernie, what he really didn't do was build a kind of lasting movement. He had Our Revolution afterwards, but he got behind Hillary Clinton, and like the Sanders movement was demoralized and deflated, and they all went home.
Yeah. Whereas in your native country, you've got this going on. A fifth of voters stood back Corbyn's left party.
This is important.
Yep. Former Labour leader and Zara Sultana have the potential to shake up British politics. And great. No, is it? Whatever. Damn these.
It doesn't matter. The point here is,
share
that. The Labour Party is in very much the same position as the Democratic Party in the United States right now, in that they're, historically unpopular, right? Keir Starmer is very widely disliked. That creates an opportunity. And Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana have understood that it creates an opportunity and seen it as a moment to break with the Labour Party, to form a new third party. Now, in Britain, third parties are more viable than they face fewer obstacles than they do here. But what's incredible is that even before the party had a name, like, they attracted, I think in some polls, more support than the Labour Party. And I do think that if Bernie had actually followed through on his, kind of intimations that he might form a third party, and he brought some other popular figures with him, you might see the same thing, where they would eclipse the Democratic Party in polling very, very quickly.
Oh, I think without question, the only problem is that we have a winner-take-all system in this country that is so broken beyond repair. At least in a country like the UK, like in England, you do have this opportunity where a true left Labour Party could actually emerge and actually cause a stir. And this is just right on the surface. It's not even really taken off yet. But if it does, I mean, Jeremy Corbyn was really revered, and the biggest reason he got pulled out of power was because they painted him as an anti-Semite. If they try it now, it's not going to work. In fact, there's probably a substantial portion of the British voter out there that regrets that they allowed Corbyn to be taken out of power, because now they see through it in a way that they didn't see it before. We saw what happened at Wembley recently. You've got Bob Villan, who goes out there, death to the IDF. Yeah, probably if you had said that about 5 or 6 years ago, that would have been a big problem. But today, forget it. Israel has shot their load and then some. And so where I want us to obviously conclude this story which I think is very important. We talk about other content creators where it's necessary. When you think about the most dishonest operator in all of what is this current independent media movement that's happening right now, you would be hard pressed to get me to believe that there's anybody worse than Bari Weiss. I truly believe he is beyond scum. She fancies herself as this oppressed individual, that she took on power. And on top of everything else, this has always been one of my biggest issues with neoliberal politics. They like to use their little anecdotes, their little, oh, I'm a lesbian. Oh, I'm a this person. So you can't criticize me. I'm a Jewish lesbian. So now you really can't criticize me. And I believe in the state of Israel. So the state of Israel must be saved. But where it gets infinitely worse is we have pointed out constantly about the billionaire class and what their intentions are in this country. I have always maintained that the biggest reason why the state of Israel exists, why there is this, and you're not allowed to criticize Israel narrative that gets pushed out there constantly, is because the billionaire class is for the state of Israel. Why are they for the state of Israel? Well, as I've pointed out and will continue to point out, there is a $500 billion worth of natural gas under Gaza's soil. That is the first and foremost reason that I believe that this supposed attack on October 7th happened, so they could go in and commit their genocide. And then there is about 25 miles worth of coastline real estate to be constructed in the trillions of dollars. That is yet to happen. But if I have my way, it's totally going to happen.
I mean, he says it. Right, this is not like speculation. I mean, Trump has been very clear that his ideal plan for the Gaza Strip is for the United States. He said the United States should take it over. He says, look, beachfront real estate, get rid of the Palestinians and redevelop it, and he'll make a pile of money. I mean, he hasn't even made any effort to disguise this or to disguise this in a layer of idealism.
Well, I think that that's also what makes Trump endearing to me. I know it's funny, but you know what, though? To me, it is endearing because that is his legacy. His legacy is what his legacy will be is that if in any positive light, if you can say that about him, is that he broke the system. He broke it because more than anything else, he can't sell empire. We're totally going there for the oil. That's the reason we're going. You can't say that.
Well, you know, what's funny about doing this book, right, with Chomsky is that Chomsky spent his whole life debunking, exposing American mythology about our benevolence, right? And about why the violence that we inflicted on other people was morally necessary, why it was for their own good, why actually we just wanted to spread sweetness and light and freedom and democracy to the rest of the world, how we believed in the rules-based order. And Chomsky would expose the total hypocrisy, the ways in which we violated the rules that we said we cared about with impunity. And it was weird writing this book, The Myth of American Idealism, because on the one, Trump came in for the second time right after the book was published, and I was like, well, we don't really need to debunk this myth anymore because, like, there's nothing to debunk when he says like we want Greenland, so we're gonna take it. You're like, there's no myth of American idealism like that. There's no layer that has been placed above the self-interest to disguise the self-interest. It's just a naked statement of self-interest.
Right. Well, you know what I say, Peter. You know what I always say about Trump. He's the most honest liar. He's the most honest liar. We've never had a more honest liar in that office. Yeah.
Colin, could you please pull up the slides? Like you said, he facilitates the revolution.
Yes,
that is what he does. You know, nobody was willing to protect empire. I mean, listen, Bernie probably would have in the inverse because, of course, he would have been calling for the type of policies that would have changed this country dramatically in the right way. We had that opportunity. But now you have this billionaire Zio class, because pretty much all of them are. But the biggest Zionazi of them all, it turns out, Jen, is actually Larry Ellison. He's number one. So he has, through his son, his Nepo baby son, because we're noticing the whole Nepo baby thing becoming a real, bane on our existence now. But pro-Israel billionaire to buy CBS, turn up the pro-Israel bias to an 11, And so if you scroll ahead, Colin, what we have here is David Ellison, son of Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison is the biggest donor in the world to the IDF. Number one. He's given, I believe, hundreds of millions of dollars to the IDF. This sick fuck who owns or is one of the co-founders of Oracle is buying CBS through his son. Larry made his money working with well, of course. So they all make their money with the CIA. It's a hand-in-glove type relationship. Ellison is the IDF's largest single donor and counts Netanyahu among his closest friends. Don't they all? Ellison reportedly wishes to hire Bari Weiss as a new CBS ombudsman. Could you two more experienced journalistic people explain what an ombudsman is? I am not too
ombudsman. It's ombudsman.
Okay, so what?
Yeah, an ombudsman is someone who sort of like handles something for different constituencies, right? It's somebody who can sort of like be an intermediary, a liaison between an organization and whatever constituency or, I don't know, market area that they're reaching.
But in a media context, oftentimes the person who is appointed as an organization's ombudsman is supposed to be the kind of serve the function of the inspector general in the government, where they're supposed to be the guardian of the ethics of the this is what's so ironic about Bari Weiss being the ombudsman, is that they're supposed to like look out for and investigate and make sure the organization is being true to its principles and not doing anything unethical. Which is kind of extra. I think it's a Scandinavian word. There's a legend that Ralph Nader introduced the word ombudsman to American discourse in like the 70s.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, the only time that I've really heard of it when I was doing condo and HOA law, there was somebody like it's a position in administrative legal setting. So when administrative law is arbitration in front of an executive branch, whatever. So it could be like the Florida Department of Transportation. All right. Like a state department, executive branch department, anybody who is working in there to sort of make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like there's ombudsman positions that represent regular people in those capacities, in those groups. That's what I always thought it was. Like, that's how I knew who those were from dealing with arbitration with executive branch agencies.
There was a position at the New York Times for a while that was the public editor, which was kind of an ombudsman, where they were supposed to be like, they were the liaison between the public and the newspaper. Right. And they were supposed to take all the public's complaints and they were supposed to kind of check. They were supposed to be the public's representative at the newspaper to check that the newspaper was serving the public. And they had some really good people in that role, particularly Margaret Sullivan. And that the public editor was this like weird position where they worked for the New York Times, but they were really supposed to work for the constituency of the public. And a couple of years ago, the New York Times abolished that position because they realized that having this ombudsman who was not just accountable to the New York Times ownership, but was accountable to the public was something they really, really didn't want, because that person ended up criticizing the New York Times management.
Of course. Next one, Colin. Bari Weiss began a career heading a student organization that attempted to have Muslim academics who criticized Israel fired.
Right.
Sounds like a true Zionazi. Next one.
She's like Minnie Dershowitz.
That's probably her inspiration. Weiss and her outlet, the Free Press, what a name, and I get emails from them all the time, are known as among the most enthusiastic supporters of Israeli actions in Gaza and beyond. Yeah, you should see some of that writing. And next one, or is that it? I think that's it. Yeah, that's everything. I mean,
I'm sure that'll help. I'm sure that'll help CBS gain viewership. I'm sure that them going to the right and censoring people will really help bring around the new young generation to watch their news.
Well,
no, it's a dying industry.
Well, I mean, that's a point, is that, I know that David Ellison is going to get the network of his dreams, and he can, have it parrot whatever he believes. But I don't think he's going to build an audience that way, because who is the audience for this? I mean, we've seen the massive public opinion shift on Israel-Palestine. Like, people get it. They understand what's going on there now. They're not fooled anymore. So you're not going to build a right-wing media network, because the right has its own media institutions. They're not going to come over to CBS. And you're not going to attract any of the broad public. So I don't know who's going to watch CBS. It's going to be like MSNBC. It's just going to slowly die a death.
Well, did you MSNBC is having like an event?
Sorry, MS Now.
Did you see that MSNBC is having like? Did you see that they're having like a tour?
Oh no.
Yes, they're doing like an event where like I think it's going to be, I'm pretty sure it's in New York, but it might even be something that they're doing virtually in other places where they're reintroducing themselves.
Yeah, MS Now.
MSNBC, and it's like all of their talking heads, we're reintroducing ourselves. Like they're having a whole new campaign and they're launching it at this event. I cannot
desperation.
Yeah, no. I just look, we've built ourselves a nice little channel. We recently eclipsed 50K. And as far as I'm waiting for them to pull the rug out from under us because of how openly we speak out against the state of Israel and the corporate infrastructure that has destroyed our country. But hey, as long as we're here, might as well do a little plug-in before you go. Anything that you're working on now that people should know about going forward?
Well, obviously, the Chomsky book, I hope people check out. It's coming out in paperback in October, and our, the Current Affairs magazine is coming out every couple months in print. We're at currentaffairs.org, and we're very proud of our print edition. I'm actually working on a little short kind of booklet that is actually about the American role in Gaza because and Palestine, because there's so much discussion about Israel. There's so much less discussion about both the Biden and Trump administration's like direct facilitation of the genocide. And so it's a book that specifically focuses on how the US set the stage for the genocide. And tentatively called Gaza, American Crime, American Responsibility. But I'm putting that together now. That should be out probably not till early next year. But
well, that'll make you popular with the powers that be. That'll probably do you good in the rankings.
Oh boy.
Keep fighting the good fight. The one thing that we've talked about at length, and this is one of the reasons why, Jen and I are both Constitution absolutists, especially when it comes to free speech. Journalism is unfortunately a dying industry. So for those that are actually practicing real journalism, like you, like our old friend and the person who brought this conversation tonight together, John Holder, it's very important that we do what we need to do to coalesce, cross-pollinate, as Jen likes to say. That seems to be a lost art. A lot of people are always looking out for themselves, but you are doing some really solid work. And I can only hope that it continues to grow and that we continue to figure out through this ever-changing world every day, that we somehow figure out that this is a class war, nothing more. And the sooner we realize it, the faster we're all going to put our differences aside and actually take our country back.
Well, that's a rather positive note to end on.
We try to be hopeful here.
Do it.
If we do say it's throw a little hope in there. What else are we living?
I love it.
Thank you so much. It's so nice when the people
it was
that
a joy.
The real journalists come and grace us, because I always say we present the information by bringing on the people that know the information. So thank you.
Hey, thanks for what you do.
All right, thanks, Nathan.
We hope to see you in New Orleans someday. If you're ever here, stop by and.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that's where you are.
Perfect. Right. You know what? I'll let you know. I'll be.
He's not far.
I'm actually planning on coming for the Giant Saints game in early
Okay,
October.
cool. All right. Well, you can come hang out with me and John.
Oh, is
All right.
John living in New Orleans now?
Yeah, he moved to New Orleans to come work here.
Wow. Cool. All right.
Yeah,
Have
he's
a
a good
great
guy.
thank
be
you
in
so
touch.
much.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Lee.
man. Well,
That was awesome, right?
yeah.
That's totally cool. Look, it's always nice to talk to people when you respect their work and you know that they're serious and that they're honest actors and that they're in this for the right reasons. And then, of course, anybody who works with Chomsky, it's like that's just being so close to greatness that it could rub off on you.
Good rub off. I would
It
think
could
so.
that's what I mean. It's like when you get that close to intellectual greatness, it's like, you know, you can absorb some
Well,
of
we're
that.
dancing with greatness every day. At least we're trying to. And of course, you guys being here to help us get to the next level is how it's going to be possible.
I mean, look, we're never Chomsky level here. Okay. Like neither you nor me are going to be at the Chomsky level of thought.
Remember, if you leap for the stars, you might land on the roof. So at least it's worth a shot. Guys,
And you
please.
might break an arm and go to the emergency room.
Well, that I will try not to do. But that's why you wear the elbow pads and the knee pads. Very important. Although those could be used for different reasons. Make sure you get over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And we are so very grateful
You
for
see,
each and every.
Carolyn McCabe is new
Carolyn McCabe is, what are you talking about?
on our $5 patron. She's the last name.
We have a new
Carolyn
patron.
McCabe.
Carolyn
Carolyn McCabe is new, is our new patron.
Absolutely. Mario Nacy, I'll say it's Nacy. Seems like a new person. Thank you so much.
Mario, thank you for coming.
Have you guys reached out to Anthony Aguilar to have him on? He seems up to going on with anyone that will have him. Jen?
And because he is that willing, even though we're small potatoes, we are happy to say he will be joining us Saturday night. And I will be here because I have mad respect. Mad respect.
Jen actually is willing to break her streak and come on Saturday. But I would say that even though our conversations are fun, having Anthony Aguilar is a pretty big deal. So we're very much looking forward to that.
To me, that's like hero shit. You know what I mean? He's somebody literally puts life on the line and does hero shit with the best intentions potentially. And now is doing hero shit as a whistleblower against the organization that he did all the hero shit for. So like he's doubly heroed.
Well, I'm not going to say when, but I will say that it is a conversation that is in work.
Big balls. Exactly.
Yes.
Big
we
balls.
are. Where the heck is this?
What are you looking for?
Oh. So I want to let you guys know, if you're not familiar with Phil Turney, who I believe is 80, maybe a little bit older than that, he is one of the few surviving members of the USS Liberty attack from 1967. He wrote a book about it shortly thereafter, and of course has been, kind of been backburnered for a while. But ever since everything that's been going down with Israel has been coming into the light, so to speak, there is no question that a conversation with him would be certainly welcomed. So he is in touch with us now. We are trying to get.
I'm sorry. Who?
What are you doing?
I'm sorry.
Phil Turney is one of the surviving members of the USS Liberty. He was on the ship when it was attacked.
I understand now.
He wrote a book about it, and we obviously would love to have him on. So we are in the process of organizing that conversation.
Can you imagine how infuriating that must be for someone like him to have lived his life in a country that not only didn't have their back, but denies and sort of covers that incident even happened, and he watched people get dead. Like that's got to be so unbelievably infuriating.
I mean, he was probably, this is 67. So odds are he probably was drafted into Vietnam. And this is essentially where he was at that particular time. And that's what ended up happening. You go back home and you're like, holy effing shit. What the hell did I do?
Can you, and now, and it's only been recently that we're seeing the narrative change on the Zio state to where people are even being receptive to it. So, all of these years, they sat like basically the entire trauma that they went through has been denied and lied about and covered up. And yet they know exactly what happened.
Well, that's what sparked our first clip of Nick Fuentes, because he called out Charlie Kirk for going on a whole bunch of fucking tours saying that never happened, that the USS Liberty was never attacked by Israel. I'm like, if you go out there with that platform and you make that statement, you're a paid shill. I don't give a fuck what you say. There is no question that he's paid to say that. JG 1982, always a pleasure. Thank you for the $5. Either you are just stupid or brainwashed at this point not to acknowledge the genocide. It's worse than willful ignorance at this point.
It's nefarious. It's malicious. It's malicious. Right. It is, for sure.
Kenman, thank you so much for the 279 Canadian A. Lots of LA celebs have Zionist friends, though. Yes, they do. And that's part. Listen, I have maintained that the biggest reason that Springsteen does not speak out against the genocide is because he's got a lot of Zio friends. That's it.
Travers, go away with your bunions.
Welcome, MNS, for becoming a YouTube member.
Yay.
Thank you very, very much. Good to see Yalabite as always. Thank you for the $4.99. We should not write off MTG complete. We don't.
We don't.
We're just suspicious, as everyone should be. Again, we're suspicious of Zoran Mamdani. We think he's great and he's doing a great job, but that doesn't mean like, oh yeah, totally, Zoran can't do anything wrong. We've seen this movie one too many times not to say, Zoran, we support you. The second you fuck up is the second we stop supporting you, and that's your only chance. So don't fuck up. That's all we ask. Pretty simple. I do think that she does have humanity inside of her. Yeah, she clearly has humanity for her kids, because she has specified time and again that she is deeply concerned about the future of her children. And that I have no doubt that is true. And Gal Gadot compared to Portman has an evil face. Well, listen, Natalie Portman, she's beautiful, especially compared to Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
Natalie is a Zionist, but to her credit, she's been very quiet about it. I
think I saw somebody in the chat saying that she's actually spoken out for Palestinians. It wouldn't entirely shock me. She certainly hasn't been on the wrong, she certainly is not like some sort of Zio operative.
Well, let's put it this way. Since the start of this genocide, I have not once seen Portman,
Peter Beinart,
then police. I don't know where you are. I don't know what MYR stands for, but thank you for the 15, whatever that is.
MYR? Is that Myanmar?
Where?
Myanmar?
Maybe. Where is that?
Myanmar? It's what used to be Burma.
Oh, okay. Well,
Myanmar is where all that's where they were having some serious ethnic cleansing.
Interesting.
Yeah,
well, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's where I think it was the Yazidi people were being like ethnically cleansed, something like that.
Unbelievable.
Oh, Myrtle Beach. But then why would it have a different currency? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that does seem kind of weird. I mean, I know.
Is it a different currency? Or that's funny.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Colin, if you have any insight on that,
that's
obviously.
So funny.
Yep. JG 1982 with the $5. When people have nothing left to lose, they lose it. Couldn't say it any simpler than that. I mean, that's what it is. Kenman with the 279 Canadian A again. Neckbeards not capable of revolution. Probably not. They're probably not the most physically capable. That's also part of the problem. But hey, you never know. Guys with weapons.
All right, here. This is, before you put that one up, this is what she did. So Natalie Portman publicly criticized the Israeli nation state law, calling it racist and expressing concerns about policies that, in her opinion, liberal Zio.
Mario, thank you again for the $5. To quote Marvin Killdozer Heimer, sometimes reasonable Heemeyer, whatever. Sometimes reasonable men must do unreasonable things. Yes, that's what happens when you get sent to war, when it's not your choice. That is part of it.
Aha, Malaysian. Okay, Malaysian.
I don't know what 15 Malaysian dollars equals, but thank you.
But that's what it is. It's Malaysian. Okay.
JG 1982 with the $5. Any social programs that will also help blacks and browns is blasphemy to the majority white voter. Progressive whites in New York have my respect. you know what? Honestly, I don't think that number is as big as people make it out to be. I think that there are people that, well, the fear of the unknown has always been the biggest issue between people of different races. And that is not just whites with blacks or browns or anything in between. It's always the case. Cultural understanding has always been the biggest knock. When you think about what you constantly hear from the American firster nationalists, if you will, there is always this deep, intense desire for people to assimilate. If you're going to come to the United States, not that they're anti-immigrant, although there are anti-immigration people out there, is that the message is constantly, if you're coming to the States, get adjusted to our customs or you're not welcome here. That's basically their message. Now, do people agree with it? I have my agreements and disagreements with it to whatever extent, one would expect somebody to assimilate within a certain period of time and what is available to them. Remember, we are not a country that has universal education, tuition-free trade schools. That type of stuff doesn't exist. So if we did have that, it'd be a lot easier to get people to assimilate. But remember, what is the biggest reason that we have this illegal immigration issue here in the United States? Multinational corporations want to pay a slave wage. They do not want to pay a living wage because it cuts into profits. And so that's why that issue ever becomes an issue. And that is why the whole, should we be getting along with other races? Again, if you're bogged down in that bullshit, you've already lost. You've already lost the plot. Multinational corporations, the billionaires that facilitate this whether you want to call it fascism or not, but at least an oligarchic takeover of our country, those are our enemies. Larry Ellison and his little Nepo baby bitch son, those are your real enemies. Those are the people that are causing you strife. And the sooner you figure that out, the sooner we will have a change in this country. Kedman with the 279 Canadian A again. Guardian is a terrible paper loved by progressives. I have no opinion one way or the other on that one. Teresa, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. Always a pleasure to see you, and thank you very, very much. And Farah, thank you so much for the $2. That was awesome, y'all. Well, we appreciate each and every one of you.
I love y'all.
Y'all. Well,
Hey, I lived in Texas. Y'all is a perfectly acceptable word.
The stars at night are big and bright.
Yes.
I am not surprised by this story. In fact, I couldn't have expected. I'm sorry?
Check your phone.
Check my phone. 1 second, guys. All right, so we'll do this. You'll do this one, and then I'll take over and I'll finish it up.
Okay.
So for those of you who have obviously been paying attention to this story, and we certainly have, Tom Artyom Alexandrovich, the acting head of data and AI at Israel's National Cyber Directorate, was arrested in Nevada the other day in a federal child predation sting operation, but escaped the law by returning to Israel. I mean, are there any words for this shit at this point? You get caught in a child sex sting. And what do? They allow him to post $10,000 bond, and he's gone. He's in Israel.
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Well, that's the safe haven for pedos. Israel is perfectly content being a safe haven for rapists and pedos. So they're known for it. Isn't that where Brett Ratner ran off to and whoever else? That's what they do.
It's a sick reality, but this is exactly what has become of our system, and it makes me sick. But what I will say, which I think is important here, many people are focusing on Tom, which they should, because obviously he's a sick fuck and needs to be taken down, even though he was allowed to escape. Who allowed him to escape, Jen? Who was the person that allowed him to get out of here? Well, it's funny.
I forget her name.
It turns out, guys, that the Zionist control over our country runs very deep, extremely deep. So there's multiple layers to this. That also includes a clip from our friend Kim Iverson. But it starts here with a lady that goes by the name, give me 1 second. It's as Israeli as it gets. Let's see. Her Her name is Shah. No, I'm looking at you. You texted me during the live stream. It always throws me off. Sigal Shatta. Sigal Shatta, who is the U.S. Attorney for the state of Nevada.
Right.
Israel-born state attorney for Nevada.
Behind me is the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Nevada. On Tuesday, the interim U.S. attorney resigned and the Trump administration appointed an acting U.S. attorney. But get this, it's the same person. Sigal Chattah, a Republican attorney who lost a race in 2022 for attorney general, was named interim U.S. attorney by the Trump administration starting April 1st. By law, she could only serve 120 days, a term that ended Tuesday. But the U.S. Attorney's Office confirmed Chattah had resigned and was immediately named acting U.S. attorney. Chattah has not been formally nominated for the permanent job, which requires Senate confirmation.
What can you say about the legal maneuver which resulted in you becoming the acting U.S. attorney here?
So, what the politicians call legal maneuvers, and politicians politics, and we play by the rule of law. There was an opportunity under the law. I took that opportunity. It's not unconstitutional. It was not done in a nefarious manner. And there's nothing that politicians can do about it. A lot of these people, I know that they're scared because I know where a lot of bodies are buried.
Could you imagine making that statement on national television?
No. That's a level of like chutzpah and impunity. Like they have no fear of anything. They can do whatever they want. There's no accountability with these people.
Now, why are we playing this clip, ladies and gentlemen? I'll tell you why. Because this buffoon of a human who somehow is the U.S. attorney for the state of Nevada, she is the person who allowed Tom Alexandrovich to escape to Israel. These are two Israel nationals running substantially important positions in the state of Nevada. She is the one who allowed him to be set free. The prosecution will not be done against this person, against a pedophile. No, won't be done because, again, they are above the law.
Because,
like I said, I'm Israeli. I'm Jewish.
So, without saying too much about my previous experience as a defense attorney, but when you played that side, where all the bodies are buried. Sometimes you even choose the location to bury them.
Like I said,
I mean, she's basically telling on herself. She's saying, "Yeah, I've buried a few bodies here and there. It's just part of the job." You're on mute.
Nobody cares. They have complete impunity.
They do, but when does it end? That's the question. When does it end?
I'm Israeli. I'm Jewish. So
Chattah not revealing what she means specifically. She insists she received no complaints while on the job as interim U.S. attorney.
Why do you think you're so polarizing?
It's not that I'm a politically polarizing person.
No, you're right.
It's
You're
that
just a psycho.
I know where all the bodies are buried. That's what scares them. So this isn't about me being an extremist.
for me, like I
It's
said,
about you being a psycho.
I'm Israeli. I'm Jewish. So
You sent a text to a former friend about A.G. Ford. You said he should be, and I quote, hung from an effing crane. I have to just ask off the top, I understand it was a private text to a friend, but why would you write that, those words?
The bottled water.
Bottled water fell. It's okay.
Is that okay?
We're
You guys
gonna
are
roll.
cut that, right?
We'll take care of that.
And the comparison that I had made was I compared him to a leader of Hamas.
And though, even with your different political views than him, that that comment in America about an African American man, even if it's not how you intended it, could be deemed racist.
Could you imagine treating this fucking skunk with so much, with such a thick pair of kid gloves?
Well, yeah, because the same people that she works for are the same people that own him or whatever, whoever it is, like whatever talking head she's on. If she's on that show, it's because they own whoever that is.
She basically wrote, and I quote, she is basically doing a throwback of using the most absurd of terms, but talking about a black man hanging from a crane. Like, how do you keep your job when you put shit out there like that? I want this guy to be hanging from the crane. It's one thing to say you hate a guy. It's one thing to even say the N-word. It's another thing entirely that you say, I want to see a black man hanging from a crane. Are you like this? Fucking hell, man. The type of shit that they are capable of getting away with. Like that they're even having a formal, a polite conversation about this.
Right.
And you wonder why this guy, Tom Alexandrovich, was able to escape back to Israel. This is the person who allowed him to escape.
Right.
Understand how people would hear it and see it that way.
I'm a Yemenite Jew, okay? We're the blacks of the Middle East. There's no question about it, okay? But corrupt people do go to jail, and, you know, I don't know that they get executed in the U.S., but that was in comparison to a leader of Hamas, and that's what they do to traitors in the Middle East.
I mean, I'm a yes.
This is definitely one of the worst I've ever said, I've ever heard. Like, this is about as bad as it gets. I mean, I appreciate the transparency because I would rather they just all talk this way because this is all, I mean, this is how they all think, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I need to wrap, guys. I really do. I've tried to tell that to Peter, but he will keep prolonging this and keep me sitting here, but I really do. So let's finish this up and I do need to go.
Yemenite Jew, it doesn't get much darker than, you know, than being
You're not that dark.
a Yemenite Jew.
Her priority, she says, human trafficking. In Las Vegas, a well-known sex trafficking hub, we haven't seen many federal cases.
Historically, there has not been an incentive to go after human trafficking.
So what are you doing to change that?
We're going to go after human trafficking. Yes, yes.
So not only is she not going after human trafficking, and considering that Vegas is one of the most trafficked places in the world, and she is in that position for what purpose? Basically, to just continue the charade. So I will continue this on a second.
I'm trying to hit a restaurant that's going to close in a half an hour, and this is like my last meal with Graham before he moves into college tomorrow. So I'm going to go, and you can, you know,
It's pontificating with Pete for the next little while. Bye to Jen, guys.
Bye.
Talk to you in a few. But this, in a lot of ways, you know, just speaks to where the real problem comes into play. You know, we're trying to do justice here, and we're trying to show people exactly how bad the Zionist state actually is. There is no question that they are able to get away with murder. You actually had the state attorney for the U.S. attorney for the state of Nevada talk constantly about how, where are the bodies buried? She's basically letting you know that I bury the bodies. Pretty much. I mean, I couldn't have interpreted it any other way. And so when messages started coming out regarding this particular situation in Vegas, leave it to our good friend Kim Iverson to address what actually was happening over on X. Apparently, Elon was deleting all of the tweets regarding Alexandrovich because he's a pretty high up guy in Netanyahu's administration.
Alexandrovich was the only one who was released before seeing a judge, got out on bail, didn't even see a judge, got on a plane and flew off to Israel. Clearly, in the interrogation records, it shows that Tom Alexandrovich demanded to speak to the Israeli government, to the embassy, also told them that he had his flight back to Israel. They were fully aware, and the Israeli government was fully aware because he was able to talk to the embassy. So we now know that the Israelis are lying, which, you know, are we surprised? Are we surprised? And we know that the government, absolutely, the U.S. government knew that he had a flight off to Israel. Nobody pulled his passport. He didn't even see a judge, and he's run off. Now, the Americans are acting like they do with Epstein files, right? They're acting like, oh, we're going to do something about this. We're going to do something. And then, of course, they're not going to do anything. They're saying heads should roll. The woman who should have been in charge of actually prosecuting this guy, turns out she's a dual Israeli citizen. She was born in Israel, and she's the DA in Vegas, and she let the guy go, and then she turns around and blames it on whoever let him go, whichever liberal DA let him go is to blame. They're always blaming the Democrats now. Epstein files, it's the Democrats' fault. This was a Democrat hoax. Now the Israeli DA in Las Vegas is saying, who's the liberal who let the Israeli go? Who's the liberal? Like, oh, you guys really think we're really stupid. Okay. So Sean King ends up being censored by Israel. And this is the post that Sean King put out there. In the middle of the night, Elon Musk deleted every single tweet I've made about Israeli pedophile Tom Alexandrovich that was arrested in Las Vegas for sex crimes against children. All of them, every retweet, every link to my articles, gone. He then says, my lawyers were told that the tweets about Israeli pedophile that was arrested for sex crimes in Vegas were all removed after a government demand. So his lawyers were told a government demand required us to remove the tweets, but they didn't tell the lawyers which government. And he says, has this ever been done before? I get zero notice, explanation, nothing. So his account didn't get a flag. It didn't get a warning. It didn't get anything. His just tweets were gone. And that's all he knew. The tweets were suddenly gone. And then it turns out that it gets confirmed that Twitter admitted it was the Israelis that asked them to get rid of the tweets, and they complied.
They complied. They complied. Get rid of these tweets. You're making one of our powerful, highly ranked officials look bad. I understand he's a pederast, but we can't have that out there. We got to cover it up. We grew tired of the Catholic Church covering up rapey pedos that were priests. At some point, it's just going to turn out the same way. We must sever this unholy alliance with the state, genocidal, fake state of Israel. What the hell do they have on Elon? What island has he been to that the supposed richest man in the world gets on his knees the second Netanyahu tells him to do something? Delete these tweets now.
Which is even crazier. And the claim that they had as to why they removed the tweets, they claimed it was doxing. But there was no doxing. There was no, and Sean King says this in his piece right here. He says, which is the northstar.com. He says, yesterday morning while I was asleep, Elon Musk deleted hundreds of tweets. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't Elon directly, but, X, and people will blame Elon, especially people like Sean King who are like ultra liberal and hate Elon Musk. But nonetheless, this thing happened to him and it's real and it should alarm all of us. He says hundreds of tweets were deleted I made about the Israeli pedophile Tom Alexandrovich, who was arrested for sex crimes against children in Las Vegas, then allowed to flee Israel without even a simple hearing. Now we know why. Israel demanded they delete my tweets. For the first time, Twitter now admits it was them who deleted my tweets, and here's the reason they gave. This was from Grok saying, yes, based on verified reports, X voluntarily deleted the tweets under doxing policies, likely promoted by Israel's cyber unit where Alexandrovich worked. This lacks a public U.S. legal mandate, effectively limiting scrutiny and indirectly protecting the accused from public exposure. So not only did he get away with this crime and get to run off to Israel, but then his same division goes and says, oh, and remove all of these tweets. So because Israel's cyber unit, it was Israel's cyber unit asking to remove the tweets, and Tom Alexandrovich heads up the Israel cyber unit. Saying that, let me be absolutely clear, Sean says, I never doxed this man, not once. Everything I posted came from public records and widely shared news reports, court filings, mainstream outlets, documents that contain no addresses, no phone numbers, no private identifiers. Thousands of people have shared the same material. That's why Twitter and X never gave me a warning, never suspended me, never sent a notice. They just deleted everything silently because they know the doxing excuse is bogus.
And it is bogus. But this is what happens when you do not have the truth on your side. You have to censor, you have to block, you have to obscure from the truth. This is what's happening. And this is just one of many stories. But Alexandrovich is only free and in Israel now because of another Israeli national that was even higher up than him that had the authority to let him go. Is anything going to happen to this Sigal Shatta? What do you think? I'm not holding my breath, and I don't think anything's going to happen to Elon. But this really goes to show you just how far they're willing to go to fall on the Israel sword. Whether that's with the Epstein files, whether that's with the financial incentives, whatever the reasoning is, they are going to go down with this ship. I don't know how much more obvious they can make it to suggest otherwise. That's just what I see. And as we go forward, I question whether anything substantial is going to change in the interim unless there is an understanding of what I would consider to be this sort of meeting of the minds amongst the true working class of this country. That is where the real change is going to come from. That is our job. And that is, I feel, an obligation for all of us to recognize why certain voices are getting to higher places, if that makes sense. You know, I have made it very clear when it comes to somebody like Nick Fuentes, there is a reason that his platform is growing exponentially right now. And he's not even on YouTube. He's only on X, Twitter, and Rumble. But this is a guy who has a very large platform. And I bring this up because when we were talking with Nathan earlier about the Democratic Party basically being dead and not having any real prospects, and you see the ones with what you would consider to be big platforms, they're all getting on their hands and knees for Newsom. And Newsom's got a great social media game going right now. And so naturally, they're going to adhere to whatever he wants because, again, for them, it's just about the collapse of the party. And how much can you extract from that collapse before it's completely gone? For them, this is just a money grab. Nothing more, nothing less. There is no real direction. There is no leadership. I hate the two-party system. I think most people do. But what I know, and what should not be denied here, is that Fuentes is garnering an incredible amount of support in terms of the direction that the future of, whether it is the GOP, whether it is the future of MAGA, he, at the very least, is trying to corral as many people as he can. Now, again, that's not without questionable motives, because I think that that's very important that we do not ignore that reality. But at least there's a pushback against the likes, in this case, of J.D. Vance. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other about J.D. Vance, other than I think he's just a complete empty vessel and a shill. And why is that? Well, because he is the brain, he is the trust fund baby, if you will, of the brainchild that is Peter Thiel, who I think is one of the most dangerous people that's ever walked the earth. I think Peter Thiel actually is somebody who, if he could, let's say, wipe off a significant portion of the population on this planet, he would do it. I mean, you've seen him in interviews, how he feels about the human race. He doesn't think too highly of it. So this, in a lot of ways, to me, should not come as any surprise. It just shouldn't. And this is what Fuentes had to say about this.
This is what they fear. They fear the rage of the peasants. They fear the rage that I represent, the righteous indignation, which says, you know what? If we're really being honest, we actually did get a raw deal. My whole generation and my race got a raw deal. We got screwed by you, and you refused to make it right. And now as a result, we're all saying we're out. We're done. Okay? Yeah, we're not doing the Republican thing anymore. We're not voting for Jeb Bush. And now that Trump has screwed us, we're not voting for that either. okay? And even in 24, I know a lot of you people voted for Trump. We tried it your way. People voted for Trump one last time. And look at the result. Deportations are down 20%. We bombed Iran. They buried the Epstein files. They cut the corporate tax rate again. It's deja vu.
So as you guys can see, with Fuentes' message, it's a mixed bag, to say the least. He gets a handful of issues completely right, and then he gets a handful of issues mostly wrong. And therein lies the rub. He is the most effective voice that is out there right now. And the reason this is happening is because the system is falling apart. And I'll explain this to you guys so you understand better. I explain this to Farah. I'll explain this to anybody. The reason why this issue of the white man, if you will, is being thrown in their direction, I want you guys to all understand this. This is important. This isn't about defending this idea of white nationalism, but I want you to all be able to understand where he's coming from and why this message is resonating. When you think about the power structure in this country when it comes to white supremacy, that is reserved for a very select portion of the white population. This is not something that's universal over for, everybody. This is for a select few, which of course translates into this is a white dominant issue, which it is. But at the same time, let's not pretend like there are not significant issues for every working class person in this country. There just happens to be this idea in his mind and in many people's minds who are, let's say, of the white working class that did support Trump for the last 12 years, that they thought, well, I'm living in Ohio, I'm living in Michigan, I'm living in Missouri, I'm living in Oklahoma. Where's my opportunity? All my jobs have been kicked out. That's where NAFTA came into play. That's where normal trade relations with China came into play. The only good policy that Trump ever really did when he came into office was he 86th the Trans-Pacific Partnership on his second day in office. And that was a thank you to the people who voted him in the Rust Belt. But that was about it. That was it. He hasn't done anything. None of them ever do anything. In fact, it just gets worse. You have people that come from families in the rural parts of the United States, again, like Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and the like, Kentucky. They may have been families that worked in factories, and these are all predominantly white areas, and all those jobs disappeared. Where did they go? Why do you think Bernie Sanders was so popular with the white working class in 2015 and 2016 until he started fucking around with his message to adhere to the will of the neoliberal class? The Bernie Sanders of that 2015-2016 run had it right, which is why a significant portion of his primary voter went over to Trump instead of Hillary in the general. That's what he means when he talks about the white working class, why this is such a big issue. Do I think that there are racist elements to his message and what some may follow? Sure, that's absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that. However, do I think that what he's saying, there aren't kernels of truth in terms of what the white working class is going through in this country? They most certainly fucking are. And maybe some of them are late to the game, like a lot of people who come from, let's say, a black family or a brown family that comes from an urban part of this country where cost of living is out of control, their job prospects are zilch, and they are separated in that regard. Yes, that is a huge part of it. He is speaking to those people. He is speaking the language that millions of them listened to with Donald Trump, thinking that he was going to help them. They can't afford to live, just like most of us. That's the difference. That's what he's talking about. His language is extremely controversial at times. It's divisive. He's feeling his oats because he's got himself quite a hell of a run he's on right now. He's making a lot of money and everybody's talking about him. I don't know if they're talking about him in the context that we're talking about him in, but they're talking about him nonetheless. I am trying to pierce through all the bullshit and get to the core of the message that is resonating with millions of people. When he talks about what has happened to these working class individuals in the most decimated places in the United States, that's what's resonating. That's what's happening. And that's why a lot of people feel that the system is completely broken and not fixable. And why would they think that? It's pretty obvious why they think that. Because it is broken and it can't be fixed. The difference is, so many of the same working class people in this country who figured that out with Bernie Sanders are now figuring it out with Donald Trump. And the second that those working class figures out that binding together is the only way we get out of this, that's it. And all differences have to be set aside. Most of the feelings that people have, whether it's by race, culture, etc., most of it's from people that don't know and don't understand. The most obvious bigotry is certainly towards Muslims from what I've seen. How many people that complain about Muslims have ever stepped foot in a mosque, actually know anybody who practices the faith? I'm sure the number is very low. Propaganda is a very strong animal, very strong tool, works on a lot of people, but it is our job to see to it that it doesn't work. I am not here to give carte blanche to Nick Fuentes. I'm here to critique his message properly, but to also shine a light on why people are following him. That cannot be ignored.
We tried it your way. Now we're done. Many people that voted for Trump in 2016 were Obama voters that were disappointed. What are we going to get from the disappointed Trump voters? That's what I'd like to see. It was the people that were disillusioned by the failure of Obama to live up to the hope that was placed on him that got Trump in office, that said, burn it down. What are you going to get from all the young white men that were disillusioned by Trump? Punished MAGA. I was one of them. I voted for Trump in 2016 because I was feeling it as an 18-year-old. And he didn't deliver. Didn't build the border wall. Didn't deport the illegals. Didn't end the wars. Didn't follow up on any of it. Nothing materially got better. In fact, it got worse.
So here's the big issue right here. And I don't even think it's necessarily dividing on the race lines. You see, the big issue with so many people that support him, that supported Trump, is this idea that our biggest issue economically in the United States is illegal immigration. That's the reason why we don't have a living wage, we don't have single-payer health care, why we do not have a clean environment, why we have endless war. No. The reason why we have this illegal immigration is because multinational corporations do not want to pay a living wage. In fact, if they could get away with slavery, they would. And it is our job to make sure that Fuentes' message is not misinterpreted by people who think that the big problem here is illegal immigration. I'm not saying I am not for open borders. I am not. I'm not Jed. I am very crystal clear about this issue. I do believe in borders. I do believe in the right to citizenship and coming to this country legally. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you have a problem with it, that's your business. However, the reason why it is overrun, whether at the border or people just coming into this country, it is very simple. You have Walmart, you have Amazon, you have, I could go on and on. It doesn't matter, but they're all the same. The goal is to never pay a living wage. The goal is to get as many people in this country to do as much of the work as possible and pay the least amount of money as possible. They're not just getting into this country because they have money and they have power. Illegal immigrants, what power do they have, Nick Fuentes? They don't have any. They have powers in numbers. That's true. But remember, the goal is to not allow any semblance of a working class uprising in this country, ever. It doesn't matter if you're white. It doesn't matter if you're brown, if you're black. It doesn't fucking matter. What matters is we have the biggest income inequality division in this country that it's ever seen. We have more billionaires that control our economy than has ever been seen. And if that's not enough, we have a genocide that our country is helping facilitate. And we are now, as a majority working class struggling nation, is looking around at the very entities that have been controlling us for the longest time. And they are spitting in our face and rubbing it in our eye. How much longer do you think people are going to take this? And this is the side that's armed. That's the problem. He's powerful. And many more people are going to listen to him. If they don't kill him first. Who's to say that that's not going to happen? As I've said, agree with part of his message, and I disagree with part of it. It is our job to pierce through what works and what doesn't. Part of what he's saying works. Part of what he's saying doesn't. You can take the good with the bad all you want. The way I see it, he's reaching millions of people. Maybe we could cut in on a slice of that audience and get them to see the reality of what the real problem here is. Again, not here to defend illegal immigration. But this guy is talking about multinational corporations getting their massive tax breaks. He is talking about an endless genocide. And he is using his platform for all it's worth, and he is steering people away from Trump and the GOP. What that's going to look like, I don't know. I'm not sure where he's going with this. But it's going to have to get channeled somewhere. Because the people are desperate and they need something. That's why we said earlier, is it really going to be that surprising if more Mangionis start popping up all over the place? That's the problem. This is a class war, nothing more. And I certainly hope that Fuentes understands that and his people understand that.
And now they're already serving us up J.D. Vance. It's 2025. And already they want us to get on board. Oh, your vote is counted already for J.D. Vance. I don't think so. And they fear this. They fear young men using their power. We have been reasonable for a very long time. White men have eaten shit and been reasonable for a long time. We've shrugged our shoulders and made a frog face and said, well, what are you going to do? Well, the shoe were on the other foot. Well, that's just the way things are. And we made the commute and we went to work and we paid our taxes and we vote Republican while the country got fucking worse and we got raped. Now it's time for us to be unreasonable. Now it's time for us to be unreasonable. Well, what are you going to do? Vote for the Democrat? I don't know. I might. Well, you going to burn it all down just because J.D. Vance is fat? I might. I really don't give a fuck. Yeah, I might actually. Groypers want to burn it all down just because, yeah, just because we have nothing left to lose at this point, actually.
Like I said, this message is resonating. We're all fucked. But he's, like I said, he's speaking to a lot of disinfected people right now. But that's why this is working. It's very difficult to grow up in a country when your prospects are so limited that in many ways you never become an adult. You never get to experience what it's like to actually have a stable job, to actually have your own place, to have a sense of comfort. Many of these people don't know what that's like. Imagine having to live at home with your family, if you're lucky enough, till you're 30, 35. I mean, there was a time when most people were out the door when they were 18, maybe 21. And little by little, this has all changed for the worse. I mean, like I said, you're lucky he's only, he is the most influential voice of the millennial and Gen Z, you know, men especially in this country right now. You're lucky he's not out there, you know, calling for people's heads. But this is why, if we don't figure out a way to unite the working class sooner rather than later, this will only get worse. He will get more aggressive, and his people will get more aggressive. You have Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, of all people, shitting in their pants when this guy addresses them. And let's not even get started with Charlie Kirk. Of all the people that I believe Nick Fuentes can take down, it's Charlie Kirk. I hope it's Ben Shapiro. I would be greedy to think he can get both of them. But as far as I'm concerned, I hope he does. Remember, this guy don't do corporate sponsors. This guy just does his thing. And he makes a lot of money. People appreciate him. He doesn't need to go out there and spew the Israel bullshit like everybody else in almost every corner of politics. It's good for business, he'll do it. He's speaking to a much greater message. But we cannot allow his message to reach millions of people without there being an honest critique that hopefully a good portion of his people will hear. They need to hear this. I know we're a small but mighty channel. We're trying our best. Like I said, some of it's good, some of it isn't. But it's certainly understandable why it's working.
I know people with STEM degrees that can't get jobs. Look at the price of groceries. Look at the price of a home. Look at interest rates. They won't deport anybody. 80% of the country's in favor of immigration now. Trump got elected on mass deportations, and they still won't deport anybody. What do you really have to lose?
You know, the one thing when he talks about the deportations that I will say, even though we all know the methods are absolutely insane, everybody focuses in on Trump and deportations. He is right, though. There is no comparison to the type of deportations that took place under Biden and Obama that never took place under Trump. Trump just gets the headlines because he talks about it. Remember, and we've talked about this at length on our channel, Democrats sell empire much better than Republicans do. With people like Trump, it's right in your face. People like Biden, Harris, Obama, etc. It's much more nuanced and careful. I'd rather it just be out in the open. Let people know where you really stand. It's the only way to be.
My vote is the one thing I own that you can't take from me. You can't make me go and vote for you. You can't make me go and vote for some fat ass with some mixed race family. He's a freak. He was created by Peter Thiel. Vance isn't even his real name. You can take my money. You can put me in jail. You can do all these things to me. You can't make me vote for that crap, and you're not going to, and I won't. So if JD Vance is the nominee, forget it. Not only am I not going to vote, I'm going to tell everybody else not to vote. And I'm going to go to Iowa. And I'm going to go to Iowa and tell people don't vote for JD Vance. And I'm going to be a pain in the ass. So if you want to win in 28, don't make it him.
You know, the difference is between the two sides is that if there was even one person who had even a modicum of reach and respect of the voting base of, let's say, the Democratic Party, although we all agree the Democratic Party is dying, but let's just say that there was some equivalent to Fuentes, they wouldn't pay any mind to it. Somebody with a big platform is coming after the Democratic Party, and they're going to show up at one of the primary rallies in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. They wouldn't care. Do you realize if Nick Fuentes starts showing up in places like that, they're going to have a fucking heart attack? Because he's not coming alone. He'll come with hundreds, if not thousands of people. That's how influential he is. He's going to make moves, and they're going to listen. And that's the difference. On the conservative side of politics, the politicians fear their base. On the liberal side of politics, the politicians spit on their base. That's how we're here.
Give us another option. That's called using your power. Don't be a sucker for these people. And the reason I say this is because, look, it happened to me. I was the sucker. You know? Vote for Trump. I was knocking on doors for Trump in New Hampshire in 2016. And then he picked as his vice president a never Trumper. You know what a stab in the back that is? I mean, people got the shit kicked out of them. They got fired from their jobs for wearing MAGA hats in 2016. I was one of them. I wore my MAGA hat on campus. I basically got kicked out of college because of it.
Well, you got kicked out of a lot of things because of it. But you're not getting kicked out now. So I implore people to understand that even if you don't like Fuentes' message, and like I said, it's without question a mixed bag, it's definitely a message that if you ignore why it's taking off, ignore at your own peril. That's all I'm going to say. Ignore at your own peril, because he's not going away. In fact, he is going to grow exponentially as a result. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And he is somebody that they're listening to. They're listening to him in a almost religious kind of way. And we could see that. But I also see this as a complete repudiation of the entire independent media movement that has thrown all of us under the bus. You know, independent media was supposed to be an answer to corporate media. And it's become its own version of corporate media because for them, it's all about getting paid. It's all about the money. That is exactly why we are faced with the situation that we're in today. We needed the entire independent media apparatus to speak up and out against Israel and for the Palestinian people. And they didn't. How is somebody like Nick Fuentes speaking out against the genocide in Gaza? And so many others who you would expect would be doing it are not. JG 1982, thank you very much for the $5. Fuentes saying, where did white privilege go? They voted for a con man and barely figured it out. Hey, you know what? Like Jen said, voting is kind of becoming a passé thing now. A lot of people are looking at it and recognizing that, hey, what is the point of this? Where's this getting us? As I said, Fuentes, in his own way, is expressing the message that was espoused back in 2016 when Bernie Sanders had spent over a year telling us what type of a future we could have. And then at the 11 o'clock hour, he says, go out there and support Hillary Clinton. Could you imagine what a knife in the heart that felt like? I remember it. Not anymore. And what's after voting? Well, Farah, we did a little clip earlier this evening expressing exactly what's coming, if nothing else at this point. And I think we got one more super chat from our buddy, JG. Thank you again for the $5. My only gripe with Groypers is that if you don't agree 100% with them, they call you a cuck. Hey, listen, as I said, I am covering Fuentes specifically because I see where this is going and I see how big he can get. And it is our job to use our platform to steer them in a direction that they become more understanding of exactly what this is about. I'm not throwing Fuentes under the bus, as so many others are trying to do. People fear him. People are jealous of him. But what I see is a guy with the ability to corral millions of people because this country is in such a desperate way at this point. So it should not come as any surprise at all. But that is why we have a lot of work ahead of us to do. So let's collab as best we can. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. Make sure you join us. Jen will be here with me on Saturday night. We will be speaking with Anthony Aguilar, who is going to be talking about his experience in Gaza, specifically watching the IDF assassinate Palestinian children. So you're not going to want to miss that. But remember, like, subscribe, and share. We appreciate you all. We love you all. We'll see you Saturday. Free Palestine. Good night, guys.